All right, I am going to get going. Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff Scott, your instructor for the Fall 2023 online class AWD1000 Web Development Technologies at Rankin Technical College. I will begin every morning promptly, or at least try to, at 8:05. And every morning you'll get an email like you did this morning. You'll actually get 2 emails per day from me. The first one will be just like this one, which will have a link that you can click on to join the meeting. All right. And the one that you get in the afternoon will have the URL for the recording that I'm making right now. So I am recording. I'm taking for granted that right now you are all able to read and you're all able to see the email that I wrote this morning. Hello, day one, etc. And if for some reason you cannot, please unmute your microphone and tell me. All right. But like I said, as far as I know, everything is good. Okay. So to give you an overview of what we're going to go over today, I am first going to talk to you just for about 5 minutes about the courses that are in the AWD or Application and Web Development program here at Rankin. All right. After we do that, we're going to go through the syllabus. Now, there's 80 days in the class. Of course, I'm not going to go over all 80 days. I mean, that would actually be silly for me to go in and do something like that. Okay, and it would take way too much time, but I'll try to do it both on a weekly basis and on a daily basis so you know what's going on. Okay, then we're going to again quickly look at a front end developer article. It's very short, but it'll talk about the main components or the main things that we'll be covering in this class. There's more to it than that, but at least it gives us a good start. Next, we'll talk about your books. Now, I've been emailed from people asking me about a Cengage key rather. We are not using Cengage books, so that is moot. I will tell you, I did not know this until a week ago, and that is your books are free. If you did go out and buy a book, you are entitled to a free one. And the way that you get those is you will have to go into the Rankin Technical College Wentzville campus. And when you go in there, there are 2 buildings. All right. There's the main campus that says Taylor Building on it. And then there's the administrative part that says Larry Elms Training Center. If you go into the Larry Elms Training Center, if you open the door, walk in there, make a right turn almost immediately, all right, you'll see that there'll be a gentleman sitting there named Mr. Patrick Glynn. Some of you may have already been working with Patrick. And Patrick can give each one of you a free copy. And I shouldn't even say free because your books are now included as part of your tuition. It was not like that previously. All right. All right. After we get done with that, then we'll talk about some of the software that you'll need to use for this class. It's all free. It's not very hard to use, and I really and truly mean that. And I'm going to show you both Visual Studio Code, which is how we're going to enter information into the computer. And I'm going to show you both Git and GitHub. They're not the same thing. We'll talk about the difference between the two of them. We'll go through that in just a little bit. All right. After we get done with all that, we're going to actually build a web page. Now, it'll be pretty ugly when we first do it, and hopefully you will understand why it'll be pretty ugly when we create it. Then we'll add a few things to it and start prettying it up. All right. After we go over that, we're going to go over chapter 1 of the text. We will go over at least chapter 1 today. All right. Probably what we'll do is everything on this list, and then chapter 1 today, and probably chapters 2 and 3 tomorrow. Please don't let that throw you and have you think, oh my gosh, she's going so fast. Much of the stuff that's going to be in here is common sense. And when we go over a certain topic, we're going to have the computer up and running so you can see it in action right away. All right. Okay, and then last, as it says, my Friday situation, we'll talk about that at the end of class. Now, you might look at this and be a little bit scared and say, hey, you're giving us written tests, labs, and homework, and they're doing 6 days. Yes. One of those two, I don't know if it'll be the labs or the homework. I'll let you know tomorrow. All right. We're going to do the whole semester's worth as a class, either the labs or the homework. Now, even though we will do them together as a class, you will still be responsible for turning those in. Also, just for chapters 1, 2, and 3, we're going to do the written tests as a class. And again, you will still be responsible for turning those in. You'll notice that the homework is due by midnight 1 week from today, 9/4. Now, typically, your homework will be due Sunday by midnight. But since next Monday is a holiday, there are no classes next Monday due to Labor Day. I'm pushing that date by 1 day. All right. So again, as we go through this, if I say something that doesn't make sense or whatever, you can feel free to unmute your microphone and ask if you have any questions. All right. And I try to do that and make sure that as we're going through any topic, all right, that if there's questions that you can ask. All right. So let's just start from the top here, the overview of the AWD program. And I did send you this attachment this morning. Here it is. And I'm just going to open it up, make it a little bigger so we can all see it. All right. Now, some of you in this class, and just so you know, presently there are 14 people in this class. And out of the 14 people, 4 or 5 actually started last spring and have already taken this class. That does not mean if this is your first class, you're behind the 8 ball, you're dumb, nothing like that. All right. It's just that some people, rather than taking the courses in order of 1, 2, 3, 4, will take them to 1, 3, 4. That's all. That's the only difference. All right. And I've had many, many, many people start with this course here, the one you're in right now, the AWD1000 Web Development Technologies. And they've started with little to no computer experience. This was their first class, and they've gone on to have successful careers as web developers, web designers, programmers, and analysts, database people, etc. All right. So this first course, the one that you're in right here, as it says, the idea behind the course is that you will be able to create your own websites. All right. The main 3 components of this course are shown in this second sentence. They are HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language, CSS, which stands for Cascading Style Sheets, and JavaScript. Those are the main 3 things that we learned in this class. Now, are there other things? Yes. Once we get through and we've learned HTML and CSS, as we begin to get ready to learn JavaScript, we also go in at that time. We also go in at that time and we learn something called Bootstrap. And if you don't know what any of this means, don't worry about it. You're not expected to right now. All right. I have had people who have taken this class who actually have already written their own websites. And I have people that have taken this class in the same class, all right, that don't have any idea what any of this is. And they both gotten A's. All right. And I believe that, one thing I always say on the first day of class, all right, you all have an A and you all have my respect. All right, I'm going to try to give you, answer any questions you have and give you all the material that you need to succeed. All right. Now, the rest of the stuff that's in there, you can read that, but those are all different topics that we're going to cover throughout the semester. As it says near the bottom, This course will provide the base for a strong future in web development. That is the goal of this course. Also, just so you're aware of it, the last week that you have class, which will be sometime in mid-December, all right, you will be given an email when you will be asked at that time to give, basically do a course evaluation. That is a threefold evaluation. You evaluate the course. In other words, did it do all the stuff that's in here? And the stuff we're going to talk about in just a minute that's in the syllabus. Did it do all that stuff? Next, you evaluate the books. All right, did they help teach you this material? Finally, you evaluate the instructor. I never see any of your evaluations. All right, so I mean, if for some reason my style, my methodology, etc., turns you off, or you think you didn't get enough out of the class, you should always be honest. That's all I ever ask of people, because the only way that I can improve is via criticism. And I look at criticism as being constructive. Now, there's certain things, of course, I can't. All right, I used to teach at a different technical college, and at that college, get her in here. There we go. At that college, somebody wrote down on an evaluation, they wrote down, I hate his voice. Well, I mean, there's not real much I can do about that. All right. I mean, it is what it is. But I look at these evaluations. What I get every semester is I get a summary of your evaluations. All right. Someone has your mic on. Maybe you could mute it. That would be good. All right. Okay. Okay, so this is the course you're taking now. If this is your first course, then in spring, you will take AWD 1100, Programming Fundamentals with C#. You will learn the C# programming language. All right, there will be people in that class in spring, I guess, yeah, in spring, that will be their first class. All right, you will already have some programming down. You'll have done some programming in the JavaScript portion of the class, all right, which probably will help you in understanding basic concepts in the next class, the AWD 1100. I'm not going to sit and read these to you, all right? Then those are both first-year classes. They both meet Monday through Friday from 8:05 a.m. till 11:55 a.m. All lectures are recorded and put out on my YouTube channel the same day. Just so you know, if you care, or I guess if you don't, I've got 10 minutes between classes. When your class ends at 11:55, I do everything I can to begin producing already the lecture that I'm doing that day. Because at 12:05, I start my second year classes. All right. So what I will be starting in at 12:05 today will be this class here. All right. Database-driven web development, because those students already took, I'm going to be teaching this afternoon, database-driven web development 2. They already took database-driven web development this summer. All right. And again, the idea is not for me to sit here and read to you. All right. What you're going to find, and one of the things that I sent out to you last week or the week before, whenever it was, were the PowerPoint slides for your textbooks. I don't go over PowerPoints. I believe you all know how to read, and I don't like to read PowerPoints to people. Most people are very turned off by that. Finally, as it says right here, if you go out to here, and there's different ways of getting there as well. All right. But that is, there is my YouTube channel. And there's other ways of getting to it as well. You can go to YouTube and just search Jeff Scott Rankin Technical College. But what you'll be most concerned with then is to click on playlists and find the one for this class. Fall 2023 AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies. All right. Okay. So with what I said we'd be going over today, all right, we have now one class. we have now gone over the first thing that was on there. In other words, we have gone over, let me open that up, sorry. We have gone over very quickly the courses that are involved in the program here. All right, so we've done that. And as it says, next, let's talk for a couple minutes about the syllabus. All right, and again, it is not my intention. This syllabus is 29 pages long. It would be silly and foolhardy for me to go through the entire syllabus. I've already gone through this basic information that's right here. All right, that is my information. I will tell you that on Thursdays, just Thursdays, I will be broadcasting to you from Rankin Technical College. Other than that, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, anytime we have lectures, I'm literally right now in one of the bedrooms in my house, broadcasting from there. The reason I'm telling you that is it's very, very, very infrequent that I am ever in the office when the phone rings. So if you want to get a hold of me, the best way always to get a hold of me is via email. I try to answer emails really as quickly as I possibly can. Now, I mean, if one of you were to email me right now, I don't stop the lecture to answer an email, but I will do the best I can. You know, we will go, literally, we go for about 50 or 55 minutes. Then I give a 10-minute break. Then we do the same thing with a 10-minute break, etc. Usually during those emails, Microsoft Teams does not have the ability right now for me to pause. So I can't put my lecture on pause. So, but what I do during that time is I look at my emails and see if anyone in the class or anyone else has emailed me and try to see if I can answer those. All right. It is an online course. And typically, you know, if you send me an email between 7 and 8, I'm here at the computer getting stuff ready for class. All right. Okay. Next are the program level student outcomes. I'm not going to read one of them to you. There's 4 here. I will tell you that the first one and the last one are both utilized in this class. All right, you've already heard you're going to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We're also going to talk about something today called Git and something called GitHub. If you've never worked with them before, you'll learn how today. All right, we have 2 textbooks for the class. And again, if you came in a little late and didn't hear this, I was not made aware of this until last week. But if you go over to Rankin Technical College, Wentzville, 755, I think it is, Parr Road in Wentzville, there are 2 buildings there. There's the Taylor Building, which houses the classrooms, and then there's the Larry Elms Training Center. And the only thing that's actually in there right now for classes are the automotive classes. But you want to go to Larry Elms, go in there, go through the doors and make a right turn, and you'll see pretty quickly in an office over on the right, Mr. Patrick Glynn. Patrick is the admissions specialist for Rankin Wentzville. He has all of your books. All right. I was emailed last week and somebody said, can you send them to us? I contacted Patrick and he said that's not the school's policy. You know, maybe that's unfair. I don't know. All right. Okay. So let's see. Those are the 2 books. Here's the course description. And again, I don't want to read it to you. You keep seeing HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right. So these are course level outcomes. These are outcomes for the whole program. So this is what you get throughout your 4 AWD classes at Rankin. These are the outcomes just for this class. So when it is the end of the semester and when you are doing a course evaluation at that time, all right, then you can use these as standards. As did the course meet, you know, did you learn to write standards, compliance, HTML5 and CSS3, etc. Okay. All right. Policies, there is an online Rankin College student handbook. Most of the stuff that's in there does not pertain to you. And the reason for that is the program that you are in right now is a very special program. And the reason that I say that, it is, to my knowledge, it is the only totally online program at Rankin. Again, I could be wrong on that. I don't believe I am. All right. So when they talk about things like attendance, all right, I mean, I'm just elated that about half of you or more in this class are here live. I mean, I think that's great. But if for some reason I've already had one or two people talk to me and say, hey, I work every day and I work from 8 till 5. That's one of the reasons I took this class. All right. No, you don't have to be here live for the lecture. It's great if you are, but you don't have to be here. All right. So when it comes to attendance, then how do I take attendance? All right. Well, one of the things that I showed you a little bit earlier today, all right, is this is due next Monday. All right. Typically, again, that work will be due on Sunday. If you've turned in anything that's due, you're marked present. If you don't turn in anything, you're marked absent. That's the way that it works with most online classes. Now, are there times when we won't have any homework? Yes, there will be. And then you won't have any, all of you will be marked present. Since I'm not making your chapters 1 to 3 homework due until midnight on Monday, I have to take attendance on Sunday. This is due Monday morning. All right. But since this week, like I said, I'm making this due Monday 9/4. I'll mark everyone present this week. All right. When your next homework will probably then end up being due 9/10, Sunday 9/10. And if you've turned in something by midnight that night, then right before class starts the next morning, I'll take attendance. And as long as you've turned something in, you're marked present. So what happens if you turn in nothing? It depends on the situation. Things happen. COVID is still around. People get sick. People get into accidents. All sorts of stuff happens. If for some reason something happens to you, it is your responsibility to let me know as soon as you possibly can. And we will try to work around it. All right. If you are in this class and just, hey, I signed up for this class, but I never turned anything in. So if it's, next Tuesday morning and, everybody's here, but then now it's the following week and the week after that, and people have turned in nothing, well, technically you'll be marked absent twice. And what happens in an online class is after you get your second absence, you're kicked out. I don't do it. Rankin does it. Now, if that happens, you can apply immediately for reinstatement. And to be honest with you, as long as you've got a halfway decent reason, probably 99 times out of 100, people are reinstated. But if you just say, well, I didn't do any homework because I didn't feel like it, it's not the same thing. All right. So again, it'll just vary. If that ever becomes an issue, just get a hold of me and talk to me about it. All right. The only reason I bring that up is the face-to-face stuff that's in here. Like I said, it doesn't matter. We're the online. So as it says, the allowable number of absences is 2. Technically at 2, you'll probably get a warning that you're going to be dropped. All right. Academic honesty, you're all working from your own computers. I have no way. All right. What some of the instructors do here is they create what are called blended classrooms. With a blended classroom, approximately 50% of the time, students are required to come to class. It's a seated class. The other half of the time, students are required to work from home. But in those cases, students always need to have a webcam and have it on so the instructor can see them at all times. I don't do that. because again, many of my students are going to end up watching these lectures later on that day. All right. So it's not fair for me to sit there and have people log on or do whatever. All right. Here is the grade schedule. And I do want to mention that the way that Rankin works is if you there technically you're never given a D. All right. If you don't attain 74.5%, you fail the class. All right. If for some reason you failed this class, can you take the class next semester? Yes. But then in the following semester, you'd have to retake this class before you could go on. I'm hoping that won't be the case with anybody. All right. And you'll notice there are no minus grades either. It's A, B plus B, C plus C, and then failure. All right. We're supposed to put this chart down, and basically what it says, all right, I'm just going to give it to you in a nutshell, is that I have had people who have taken this class with me, all right, and I try to give you time each week to work on homework and to work on labs. And again, we'll do some of the stuff together. But I've had people who have to put in very little time outside of the classroom or the outside of the class time, and they can get all their work done. I have had other people that if we meet 20 hours a week, all right, or whatever it is, that they have to spend a good 20 hours outside of this to understand everything. And then everybody is someplace in between, everybody else. So I can't tell how much time you will need to spend on this class is what I'm saying. All right. Now for Inside Rankin, if for some reason you're not able to get into Inside Rankin, please let me know. I will work to make sure that you can get into it. So just send me an email and let me know that. But that's going to be your portal, so to speak. You will be able to go in there 1 week from tomorrow, hopefully, and see what are, all your grades, everything you've turned in thus far. And I try to update it as soon as I possibly can. What I do not typically do is, let's say that we get student A, whoever that is, and student A says, well, I've already got the homework done. Can you grade it? Let me know how I did. I like to grade everyone's together. I think that tends to be the fairest way that I can grade. All right, general college information, I'll put it like that. You have questions, contact Patrick. All right, you can email him. If you think you need a tutor, let me know. All right, I will try to get you one as soon as I possibly can. If you think this stuff is really easy, I get it, and you want to be a tutor, let me know that. Tutors are provided at no cost, as this is an online class, all online, and tutors are paid $10 an hour. I know it's not a lot of money, but it's better than having to do it for free. And most people can tutor up to 20 hours a week. All right. If you have any kind of disability that would affect you in the classroom, let Patrick know. If you want to let me know, that's fine as well. All right. Our career services. Okay. Twice a year, Rankin has job fairs. Okay. There will actually be one. I think it's in early September at the St. Louis campus. Now they've changed around the way that the job fairs used to be. I don't know if it's for the better or the worse. I have no idea. But what they used to do, literally, is in fall and in spring at the Rankin St. Louis campus, they would have approximately 300 to 400 different employers come in. And I don't mean just people in your area, but automotive, diesel, everything you can think of. And it was all in the automotive center, which is a really huge complex. It's about the size of 3 football fields. But it made it hard, even though they put all the IT people, the information technology people together, it made it hard for people to kind of figure out where to go and what to do, etc. So typically what they have done is they've broken it down into multiple job fairs. All right. And I don't know if I have that one up right now. I probably do not, but I can show you real quick. Let's see. Here it is. So there will be a job fair Tuesday, September 19th, and that will be in St. Louis. Now, you say, well, what if I live in Wentzville? We have a job fair twice a year in Wentzville as well. They're not as big. We don't have the room. So rather than there being hundreds of employers, all right, there are more like maybe 10 or 15, 25 or 30. I don't know. I have not been given the dates yet for the job fair or for when the job fair will be in Wentzville. When I get that, I'll let you know. You can go even if you're a first semester student, but I'm going to highly encourage my students this afternoon because they're in their fourth semester. I'm going to highly encourage that they go to this. And if interested, go to the one that'll be in Wentzville. Usually it's a couple days before or a couple days after the one in St. Louis. All right. Jump back in here. All right. Since we are an online class, snow days are moot. Campus emergencies are moot. So again, unless you are advised otherwise, you should assume that classes will be held. Well, let me break away from this for just a minute and tell you when they might not be held. All right. Okay. Give you I don't like to talk about me personally or anything, but you're going to get about 2 minutes of it. And that is, I discovered this summer that I have a deviated septum, and it has been recommended that I have nasal surgery. All right. So I was scheduled to have it last Friday. Well, what they discovered was my doctor had double booked. So what they did, since mine had been scheduled second, they canceled mine and they have reset my surgery for this Friday. So even though it says on the syllabus, Friday will be a regular class day, it will not, because I'm going to have my surgery probably from 9 to 10:30. All right. And I've been told afterwards, because they do knock me out, that it probably won't be until the afternoon when I'm a little bit back, to normal, so to speak. All right. And I'll mention that again by the end of class today. So let's just talk about this week. All right. So what we're doing right now is the class introduction. I don't do a student handbook review because the handbook's online. You can take a look at it. 90% of the stuff that's in the handbook doesn't apply to us because they say you need to wear a Rankin shirt, certain programs need to have a certain color pants, etc. If you're watching this from home, that's all moot. It doesn't matter. All right. Next, notice in there, it says work ethic grade sheet. If you are not aware of this, you get 2 grades at Rankin Technical College. The first grade that you get is what you think. It's an A, B, C, etc. You also get what is called a work ethic grade. Rankin is a little bit different in that most schools do not give a work ethic grade like this. All right. Most schools do not have a work ethic grade. Rankin does. So let me quickly explain to you what they are. There's 4 different grades. One is called DNM, and that stands for does not meet. Then there is an NI, which stands for needs improvement. Then there is an ME, which is meets expectations. And then there is an EE, which is an exceeds expectations. So what the heck are these? Well, let's suppose, all right, that you do turn in work, but everything that you turn in is not good. All right. And when I say not good, it's like incomplete. You turn in most of your stuff late. All right. I try to contact you and you don't get back to me, etc. Those would be people that does not meet. All right. If Maybe half of your assignments are late, all right, or something else, you might get one of these. I will tell you that this is my second year where the entire program has gone online, all right? And other than one or two instances, everybody gets this. You either come to class live or you watch the videos, you do the homework, and you turned it in, all right? I did have one student a year ago who got this. Why? Why did he get that? Because he went out and on his own, he set up a study group with the people in the class. He volunteered the first day to be a tutor, even though he didn't know any of the material. All right, that is someone who went over and above what was expected. All right, so you actually do get 2 grades in here, an A, B, C, etc., and one of these. All right, okay. So that's a little bit on the work ethic. So what this class is it's an introduction to Hypertext Markup Language 5, which is the newest version, CSS or Cascading Style Sheets 3, which is the newest version, JavaScript, jQuery, which is a JavaScript library, all right, Bootstrap, which is another way of writing things that we'll talk about later. All right. Now I've got here intro to electronic portfolios. All right. Everyone who is in this class is required to create an electronic portfolio. And if you say, I don't know what that is, I'm going to show you examples, not today, but I'm going to show you examples, and I'm going to show you 2 or 3 different ways that you can build one of these. What we are finding more and more is that prospective employers in this program, they do not want to see an 8.5 by 11 piece of white typing paper with black print on it. Rather, they want to see examples of the work you've done, the work you're doing, etc. That's what you put into an electronic portfolio. We'll talk about that in a lot of detail later on in the class. All right. In a few minutes, we're going to get to talking about Git, probably right after the break. All right. So that was the introductory part. Today, we're going to go over chapter 1. There might be things in here that you don't understand. If you want to unmute your mic at any time and ask a question, that's fine. If you feel funny about doing that, send me an email. That's totally fine. I'll try to work with you one-on-one. If you are having trouble with something, an individual team, all right, and it'll have to be either before class or after 4 o'clock when my afternoon class ends. But we can do that with teams and have a one-on-one meeting, all right? But this is what we're going to go through today in chapter 1 in just a bit. I'm not going to read any of it to you, all right? And again, tomorrow, I hope to do both chapter 2 and chapter 3. Yeah, I know it's got it over 2 days, but I put it in here and I think we can do all of it. All right. What's going to happen is there's probably going to be one or more of you, no matter how fast I go, you're going to think I'm going too slow. And there'll be one or more of you, no matter how slow I go, you'll think I'm going too fast. And that's your right either way. All right. But if it's the end of this week and you're like, I'm getting this stuff, but man, you're going way too fast, let me know what you think. Send me an email. That's totally fine. I would never hold anything against anyone, no matter what they say. All right. And believe me, I've heard a lot of different stuff, pro and con. So tomorrow we will talk about how to code, how to test, and how to validate a web page. And if you say, I don't know what any of that means, we're going to do it together. All right. We'll also talk about how to use HTML to structure a web page. Again, we're going to do that together. All right. Now, I don't know why that's still in here. That was dumb on my part. All right. So let me remove that. But day 4. So the plan is right now on Thursday, you're going to have a test. Now, people are like, wait, having a test 4 days into a class, going over 3 chapters in 3 days? What the heck's wrong with you? What we're going to do, one of the things that we will do before we take that test, so one of the things that we'll do on Wednesday is I'll give you what's known as a pre-test. I write them myself. I give you about an hour to work on them, and then we do them together as a class, or I do it in front of you, however you want to look at it. And you'll find that by and large, most of these tests, and there's two types. There's written tests, which we'll look at later, and there's what are called HOTS, or hands-on tests. That's what this is. But I will do a pre-test that will look very, very similar in nature to what your actual test will be. So if you can understand that, you should be able to do the test without any problems. Well, how does that work then? Well, if we can get to this point, then on Thursday, what will happen is at 7 o'clock, by 7 a.m., no, that's not when we start, but by 7 a.m. on Thursday, I will email you the test. You will have to work on the test, finish the test, and submit it by midnight that night. That's how it works. So you literally, when you think about it, if you started right at 7 o'clock, you're getting 17 hours to work on it. All right. Now that doesn't make sense for a lot of people. If you work from 8 till 5, well, then you've got probably from 6 till midnight to work on it. So it'll be different for everyone. And I understand that. All right. Friday, I've already mentioned. And when I wrote this, okay, I look at a syllabus like this as being a living document. And what I mean is, it's always going to be in flux. I don't typically change it after I've written it, but it'll always be in flux. And what I mean by that is, we're not going to do this Friday. This will be, if we keep up to speed, this is what we'll do next Monday. All right. But I will always try to make sure when we start class that I let you know what we're going to be doing on that day. And when we end class, what we will be doing on the next day. All right. Okay. So with that said, and we're going to take a break in just a few minutes, but let's see. So we have now talked about the AWD program. We went over the syllabus. This is for the other class. Let me close this. Okay. Over the AWD program, just a brief overview. And we went over the syllabus again, briefly. All right. One of the things I sent you today was this front-end developer article. It's very short. It's called Code Talk. And you'll get stuff from me where I will either give you URLs, or I will give you something that I'd like you to take a look at. Well, it doesn't want to come up the way I'd like it to, so let me bring it up. I've got it as a Word doc also. There it is. Okay. And it's just called Code Talk, Web Development Techniques Every Beginner Should Know. And the only reason that I'm showing you this, and I won't talk about it for very long, is it mentions in here the 3 hallmarks of the class you're in right now. And that is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. All right. HTML allows you, it basically allows you to structure a web page and a website. Now they liken it in here to the skeleton of the website. Okay. And as it says, just as bones give structure to your body, HTML provides the framework for your pages. And this is what we're going to actually start on today. Tags, elements, and attributes. And there'll be times when we go through things in here that you might struggle. All right. With some of you, you might never struggle. Everybody's different. All right. So when we first come in, and I think I showed this in an earlier video that I did for the class, but I want to show you something here. what we're going to start working on today, if I close enough stuff here, that's my granddaughter. But if let's see, I think I've got it in here. There we go. We're going to start building this today, and it isn't fantastic, but it's not bad either. All right. And it's a St. Louis website, and it's got other stuff in it too. And there's 3 pages. This is the home page. This is the about page. All right. And this is the contact page. Now, are we going to do all of this today? Of course not. All right. Some of the stuff that's in here, we don't do this until we get to the JavaScript part of the class, about halfway into the semester. In here, this is what's called a form. We don't do that until probably chapter 11 or 12 in our textbook. All right, our HTML textbook. All right, but we're going to start on this one today. And if you say, well, I don't know how to do any of that, you don't have to worry about it. If you don't want to key in a lick, it's totally fine. Watch me do it. All right, and I will save everything I'm working on so that you'll be able to rip it apart, put it back together again yourselves, do whatever you want to do with it. All right. Now, what you see on the screen in front of you here, all right, is both HTML, hypertext markup language, and you also see CSS, cascading style sheets. If I go down to the bottom of the page, and it might be hard for you to see, but there is a working clock right here. And there's JavaScript that allows us to do that. Now, if I come into this file, I just want to show you this, because this is how we're going to start. And I take the CSS that's put in here, right there, and I comment it out, which means the system doesn't know we've got any CSS in there now. All right. Now, if I go back in and I look at that same page, it now looks like this. Now, that's quite a difference. Right? But that is pure HTML. And what I mean by that is the content that we want to put onto the web page. After we do that, we come through and we use CSS because CSS pretties it up. All right. So on that article that I just was showing you here, again, they talk about HTML to build the structure. And then there's CSS, which allows you to style the structure that you've created. And there are different ways that you can do styling. You're going to learn about many of them, all right, in this course. So not just straight CSS, but you'll also learn about something that's called Flexbox. You'll also learn about something that's called CSS Grid. You'll also learn about something that's called Bootstrap, which are other ways that you can add styling to a document. And then finally, you have JavaScript. And JavaScript, as it says in that orange heading there, allows you to add interactivity. So going back to what I showed you before, going back to this, all right, let's see if I go to contact. There literally is in here a guessing game. So I can guess a number between, all right, 1 and 100. I'll say 50. Says wrong, that was too high. 25. That was too high. 12. You can see that it's showing every time. 6. That was too low, so I know it's between 6 and 12. 9. That's too low. 11. That's too high, so it better be 10. And there I guessed it. The only reason I'm showing you that is using JavaScript to provide interactivity. Now you might look at that and say, what a dumb game. That wasn't the reason for putting it in here. The reason for putting it in here, putting it in like this, is it's going to allow us, as we transition over about halfway into the course, probably a little before that, into JavaScript, all right, to let you see the kind of thing that you can do with that. You'll also notice, when I look in here, this is still formatted. This is still formatted. This is no longer formatted because it was just in that one file that I showed you that I commented that line out. If I were to uncomment my comment, it would go back to looking the way it did earlier. All right. And finally, because we're going to take a break in about 1 or 2 minutes, this is what we're going to talk about when we come back. And that is something that is called Git. If you say, I don't know what that is, that's to be expected if this is your first class. All right. Some of you, I don't know if it's any of you watching or not. I didn't look at all the people, but like I said, there are like 4 or 5 people in this class, maybe it's 3 or 4, who took the class with me last spring. They already know what Git is. They already know what GitHub is. All right. The rest of you will be introduced to that in just a little bit. All right. So again, as we come through here and we start taking a look, all right, why it keeps, I didn't think I closed it, but I must have. All right. So we have now come in here and in our first hour, we got an overview of the program. We got an overview of the syllabus. We talked about what a front end developer was. I did mention, and I'm going to say it again, the books for this program are free. If you already purchased a book, then I apologize. I was just recently told that the books are available, but they're only available in hard copy, and you have to go into Rankin Wentzville to pick up your copy. You will get one free, when I say free, it's part of your tuition, one free HTML book, one free JavaScript book. You have to go in and talk to Patrick Glynn, who's the admissions counselor. There are 2 buildings at the Rankin Wentzville campus, Taylor Building, which is the main building, and the Larry Elms Training Center. You have to go to that one. Usually there's someone there between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. If those times don't work for you and you need a book, I sent you an email today, or I will tomorrow, and I'll make sure I include Patrick's email and address on there. You can talk to him about trying to get the book. All right. So after the break, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install VS Code. I already have it on my computer. I'm going to uninstall it and reinstall it right in front of you. Then when we get done with that, I'm going to uninstall Git, which I have, and reinstall that in front of you. All right. I'm not going to uninstall GitHub, but I'm going to show you how to install it. So we're going to do that next. Then we'll go in and take a look and start actually building that web page that I showed you. This is a technical college. The best way for you to learn is to start doing as soon as possible. So we'll work on that for a while. Then we'll go over chapter 1. All right. I have 8:58. It's close enough to 9 o'clock. So let's take a break and let's come back, please, at 9:10. And as soon as we do, we're going to come in and we're going to talk about VS Code and what it is, and then install it if you don't have it on your machine. I will see you at 9:10. All right, I'm going to start back up again. It is 9:10. And I just wanted to mention to you, this isn't on our list of to-dos or whatever, but sometimes what happens in here is someone thinks that they're falling behind, and whether they are or not, I don't know. But they're like, what would you recommend for resources? If I really want to learn this stuff and I'm struggling with a book or with the way that I'm presenting it or whatever, I'm just going to give you two of them right now. You don't have to write them down because I will include them a little bit later today when I send out the email. But the first one is if you literally go out to a site that's called w3schools.com, like that, you hit enter. It's a pretty ugly site. All right. You don't look at it for the beauty in it or whatever. But if I go down now to tutorials and I click on that, you'll notice there's HTML tutorials, there's CSS tutorials, there's JavaScript tutorials, jQuery tutorials, Bootstrap tutorials, RWD, which is responsive web design tutorials. There's all sorts of stuff in here. This is an excellent place. And most of the time when you go through a tutorial, they'll go through something. All right. And after you go through it, there'll be something where they say, now you try it. And they literally have got stuff in here so you can come in here. So if I didn't like this, where it says this is a heading, and you literally can come in here and say, something like that, and then run it, and boom, you've got it all in there. So that's one place. And the other one that I would recommend, all right, is it's kind of a long thing, but it's, again, I'll give you the URL for it, but it's dev.mozilla.org. All right. Again, not a very pretty site, but if you go out here and you'll notice that under guides, there's a guide for HTML, for CSS, for JavaScript. Now, I mentioned in an email much earlier this semester, and some of you may have added the class since then, so I'll have to get it again. I actually went through all this stuff and created I think it was about 200 videos 2 or 3 years ago when I went through all, and I'll try to make sure that I put a link out there to that so that you can get to that if you've got an interest in it. Again, if you go, no, the book's fine, I have no more time, that's cool, not a problem. But like I said, for those of you who might want a little bit more, I've given you a couple resources. All right. So the next thing I want to do is I want to download what's called Visual Studio Code. Now, as we look at this, there is both something called Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code. The Visual Studio is used in the class, if this is your first class, that you will use Visual Studio, which is different software. You will use that next semester. All right. You want to download Visual Studio Code, which, as it says, is at code.visualstudio.com. Now, I already have it on my machine just to show you. If I go out to Control Panel, I just typed in Control Panel down here in my search box, and I go to Programs and Features. If I look through here, because it's alphabetized, near the bottom, there is Visual Studio Community. Maybe I thought I had code. Let's see if I do. Visual Studio Community. It's even better if I don't have it, to be honest with you. All right. But I'm going to go check, and I'm going to act like I don't have it. All right. So I'm going to go just what I told you to do. So you can go out here like I'm doing right now to code.visualstudio.com/download. If you go, I can't read that, then let's make it bigger. You don't need all this. You can just go right there. All right, I'll make it even bigger than it is. All right. So code.visualstudio.com/download. Now, I haven't mentioned this yet, but it really and truly is strongly recommended for this program that you have a Windows machine. I have had people who have gone through part or most of the program using an Apple or a Mac machine. In fact, one person had so much trouble that he eventually broke down and bought a Windows machine. I have not had anybody go through the program running a Linux machine. So I'm not sure how easy or hard that would be. But I'm going here. And what I want here is when I do this, okay, I want Windows, okay, and the chances are almost 100% that you've got a 64-bit machine. If you bought your machine within the last 5 to 10 years, it's a 64-bit machine. You don't have to worry about what that is. All right. So this says it's for Windows 10 or Windows 11. I'm just going to try to click this, see what it does. And it shows me this is what we'll be able to do with Visual Studio. This is not the download yet, but it shows you what is in there. It's not very impressive, but that's okay. Let me go back to here, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to have you do this. And I think the user installer, we'll see if it works or not. So I'm going to click on the 64 under user installer. Okay, and it's actually loading it over here. It says one download is in progress, and it should show me when I'm done what it looks like. All right, so if I go over, whoops, it says setup has detected that Visual Studio is currently running. All right, because I do have I guess I do have it on my machine. So let me close that. But you won't have that if you don't have Visual Studio on your system already. All right, so let me go in here and let me go down to my downloads, which because it just downloaded it right there. In fact, I must have hit it twice because it downloaded it twice. So I'll remove one of them and I'll grab this one right here. So again, I clicked in here, all right, under code.visualstudio.com/downloads. I clicked where it says user installer x64. And it gave me in my downloads folder this thing that says Visual Studio Code Setup.exe. Then to run this, I just double click on it. Now, when you do double click on it, you might get something that comes back where your terminal bell rings and it says that you need administrative permission to run this. If you get that, just click the OK button and you should be fine. All right. So now this is a big agreement. You can print it out. You can read it. All right. But you're not signing your life away or anything like that. So I'm going to click I accept the agreement and I'm going to click next. Notice if I don't accept it, that the next is grayed out. So you must accept it. So I'm going to click next. And what you're going to find in here is by and large, all I'm going to do is just accept all the defaults. If you want an icon on your desktop, you can check this. Doesn't matter to me one way or another. I can check it. I'm going to leave everything else in here that's checked and click next. And then I'm going to click install. So it says preparing to install. It's checking out some stuff for me. And it's going through the install process as we speak then. And it says we're done. Now I'm not going to launch it. You can, but I'm not going to. So I'm going to uncheck that. And I'm going to click finish. All right. Now what I should have in here, I don't need this executable anymore. So I can remove that. Don't remove it until you're sure that it works. All right. But if I come in here now, there's my Visual Studio Code. So I can start it up by just double clicking on it. And there it is. Now you won't have this. Don't worry about what this is. In fact, it's gone. You might get, it says I have deprecated extensions installed, review them. You probably won't get that if this is the first time you've done this. Don't worry about it. You might also get a help page on here. If you get a help page on here, don't worry about that either. You can close it. This is the editor that we will be using for the entire semester. I have some stuff loaded on here that you don't have. As we go through it, I will show you what I've loaded on here. Do you have to load it? No. But there's some ways of making your life a little easier and make your work go a little faster. That's all. All right. And when you look along the side here, you'll notice we've got about half a dozen different icons. All right. So this first one says Explorer. It's kind of like Windows Explorer. So if I come in and create a new folder, we'll do this in just a bit, and we start putting stuff in it. If I click the Explorer, you'll see all the stuff that I've created over here. All right. Then the next thing there says source control, and that'll deal. This is one way that you can do Git in GitHub. We'll talk about that in just a bit. All right. Then we've got this that says run and debug. It's one way that you can run stuff that you've created. I'm going to show you another way. And then this one is called extensions. If I click this, you don't have to, but if I click it, you'll notice there are literally probably, even though it doesn't look like there's that many in here, there's probably well over 100 things I can add if I want to. And I will show you some of them as we get going. All right. So what else is left here? Down here, it says accounts. I've never dealt with that, so I'm not sure what that is. And the last one says manage. And if you click it, all right, it's got some stuff in here where you can manage some of the stuff that's in here and some other stuff. The only one that you might be interested in probably from here will be settings. And they've got some commonly used things. We are going to talk about this. We are going to talk about it, just not right now. All right. You'll notice one thing I've done is I've made my font size bigger. It's 18-point font. Yours might be smaller than that. Yours might be 12. I can't see what you're doing anyway, so it doesn't matter. But the reason that I made mine bigger is just so you can see it when we're on the screen. All right. Now, what I'm going to show you, I'm just going to do this quick, so don't worry if you don't get it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend that I've already got a folder in here. In fact, I'll just create it. And it's just going to be called garbage, because that's all it is. All right. And I'm going to put some stuff in here. We're going to build something like this in just a bit. We're not going to call it garbage, but I'm going to create 3 folders in here. I'm going to create one that's called CSS. I'm going to create another one that is going to be called JS. And I'm going to create another one that's called images. Don't worry what they mean. We're going to be doing this kind of thing together in just a bit. Now I'm going to come in here. Okay, with this, I've got this thing now called garbage. I'm going to create a dummy file right now. So I've got something in here that says new text document, and I'm going to make sure that I call it index.html. Now, when I hit enter, I'm changing the file extension on here, so it's going to beep at me. And are you sure you want to do this? Yes. And now I've got an HTML file. I'm going to come into my CSS and I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to make another document that's going to be called styles.css. And again, it's going to beep at me because I'm changing the extension at the end. And I'm going to say yes. So why did I do that? All right. Because now I can come up to this garbage thing. I can right mouse click on and choose open with code. And now it just opened what I've done, and it opened it inside of Visual Studio Code. There's my CSS, and if I click that, there's my styles.css file I just made. I did not put any images in here. I did not put any JavaScript in here. And here is my index .html. All right. So I'm just introducing some of this stuff to you. What I don't want is for you to walk away from here and go, oh my God, I'll never get this stuff. It really and truly is not that difficult. And I'm not just saying that. I wouldn't do that to you. All right. So that's the first thing. So again, if I went too fast, then you'll have to go back and watch the video. But again, all I did was I went out to code.visualstudio.com/download. I chose the user installer x64. I grabbed that file, which was saved to my downloads folder, double clicked on it, and chose every single default option that they had. That's all you got to do. And boom, that's the editor that we need. All right. Now I'm going to take for granted, and if I'm wrong here, I'm sorry, but I'm going to take for granted here that you all know what a browser is. So if I talk about Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge or Chrome or Safari, etc., that you know what I'm talking about. I am going to suggest that for this class, that your browser of choice, the one that you use, be Chrome. Now, if you say, I use Chrome and I don't like it, I use Edge, that's okay. But when I work on stuff in here, the browser I'm going to be using is Chrome. What you work on might look a little bit different if you do it in a different browser. That's the only reason I'm telling you that. All right. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to download Git. Git is a tool, and I'm going to show you all of it in a second. But before we do, I'm just going to, again, I like to give you recommendations. If you think you're throwing way too much stuff at me, I don't have time to look at all this stuff, that's fine. But if you want a little bit more than I might be giving you, I'm going to go to YouTube here, and I'm going to type in Colt Steele. This is a gentleman, Git. And you'll notice he's got a thing called Learn Git in 15 minutes. That's Colt right there. And I'll make sure that I give you those URLs as well. So this is Learn Git in 15 minutes. And it's there. And you'll also have the Learn GitHub in 20 minutes. And we'll look at that one in just a bit. All right. So this, again, this site right here, this is the W3 Schools.com tutorials. And this is the Mozilla website. In fact, it's the Mozilla, I think it's like references or whatever it was. All right. Now, the reason I'm giving you this is we're going to go over Git. We're going to install Git right now, and I'm going to show you everything that you need to do with Git. I put it into a file. All right. And I'm also going to send you that file. Send Git steps file. These are all things that I'm writing notes to myself. All right. So I remember at the end of the day to send you all this stuff. So you've got it. All right. So what is Git? All right. I want to show you because it's much easier to show it than it is to sit and talk about it. So if I come in here and I type in download Git, you'll notice that it doesn't go to git.com. It goes to what's called git.scm.com/downloads. All right. So let's see. It's that one there. No, it's not that one. I'm sorry, but I want to keep that one up there. So let's grab this. And there it is. So Git is what is known as a source control manager. That's what the SCM on here stands for. Source control manager. What you are going to end up doing with all of your homework, all right, is you're going to be using Git in conjunction with GitHub, and you are going to create what's called a repository, which we're going to do in about 10 or 15 minutes. All right. In fact, you may create several repositories, and that's where you are going to submit your work to me. All right. GitHub, which we'll look at in a couple minutes, allows you to save all of your work out to the cloud. And all the cloud is basically is out to your own account on the internet. You will give me access to your internet account so I can grade your work. All right. Now, a couple of things about this. We're going to download this in just a minute. All right. Probably in here, yours should look the same. So I could download it from here, or I can download it by clicking in here. This has always got the latest and greatest version. All right. So just to show you again, right now, if I go back to control panel like I did before, and I go and open up this, and I look in here, somewhere in here, there'll be Microsoft Visual Studio Code, and that's got today's date on it. That's what I just put in here. All right, but I also have Git in here. There it is. And it's not old, it was in May. All right, but notice it's 2.40.1. This is 2.42.0. So I have an earlier version. So I'm going to right mouse click on this and tell it to uninstall what I'm currently working on. And you'll notice it says, are you sure you want to do this? Yes. It's, how long did that take? Boom, it's done. And it's gone from here. So now I'm going to reinstall it. So I've got the latest and greatest version, the same version you will have. So I'm going to click here where it says download for Windows. All right. It says click here to download the latest 64-bit version. That's what I want. All right. Notice it was released 7 days ago. It couldn't be much newer than that. So I'm going to click on that. Again, it's coming over here and it's downloading it into my downloads folder. When it's done, hopefully at least, it's going to let me know. So if I come over here, it says done. And if I go out to my downloads folder, whoops, I don't want to do that yet. But if I go over to my downloads folder where I just was, there it is. It's another executable file. And I'm going to double click on it to you want to do basically and permission, which of course you have on your own machine. So I'm going to click yes. And now it's going to start going through the process. It's not the same as the one we just looked at, but much of it will be similar to what we just did. All right, what we just did when we looked at doing this, and we looked at doing it for Visual Studio Code. Now, there is no accept here. I'm just going to click next. And now it says, where do you want to load this? I recommend that you just use the default, which yours might be totally different, which is fine. If you want to download it someplace else, you can click. And now it's, oh, you've already got that, because even though I uninstalled it, there's still some Git stuff there anyway. It says, would you still like to install it there? And I'm going to say yes. Now, this is all of the different stuff that you can add. And if that confuses you, let's just break it down and just say, you want to make sure that if you leave it the way it is, I'm going to be using in here something that's called Git Bash most of the time. All right, I think it's the easiest. You may not agree. All right, but I'm going to leave it exactly the way it is, and I'm going to click next. Then it says, setup will create program shortcuts for you in here. Yeah, that's fine. I'm going to click next again. Now it says in here, and this is kind of the dumbest thing about downloading this, because if I click down here, I can find what we just put in. Visual Studio Code is one of the ones, and you can choose that. But to be 100% honest with you, it doesn't matter what you choose in here. Not a bit. I could have left it what it was at the beginning, or I can change it, or I could change it to something else. So I'm going to click next, and it asks you a whole bunch of junk. There's going to be a bunch of these screens. I'm going to say, let Git decide. I'm going to say, get from the command line. I'm going to say, use handled, or use bundled OpenSSH. I'm going to use the OpenSSL library. I'm going to choose checkout Windows style. I'm going to have the use min TTY. All I'm doing with each of these is I'm just clicking the next button. The default, the Git credential manager, fine. Next, the enable file system caching. Next, neither one of these need to be checked. So I click install. Again, this will take approximately 30 seconds. And then I've got Git on my machine. That's it. I now have Git. I don't need the release notes. I don't need to launch it. So I'm going to uncheck both of those and click finish. I will show you in just a minute how I know I have this. Okay. If you have gone through the steps with me, all right. If you have not, you're going to have to go back and rewatch the tape. All right. I'm not trying to go too fast. I'm really and truly not. But if I want to check and make sure that this worked, I can go right out to my desktop, right out here, and right mouse click on an empty part of my desktop. If I do that, and one of the things it comes up with is open Git GUI here and open Git bash here, it worked. You now have Git on your system. So I'm going to click here where it says open Git bash here. The one where my cursor currently is. Open Git bash here. And I'm going to have you put in 2 commands from right here. Okay, this is Git bash. You can make it bigger, but I'm going to have you put in 2 commands. The good news is you only have to do this once. I want to say that again. The good news is you only have to do this command that I'm about, these 2 commands that I'm going to give you once. All right. And I've got the list of steps in here. Where are they? There they are. So I'll put them both in and then I'll explain them to you. All right. You can't use a Control V to copy. If we want to copy into here, you have to right mouse click and choose paste. All right. I'm setting up some configurations in here. The first one that you have to put in is your name. In double quotes like that. So you need to say git config, git space, config space, minus global space, user dot name space, then in double quotes, your name. All right, put it all in lowercase except your name. You can even put your whole name in uppercase, lowercase, or mixed case like I'm doing. That doesn't matter. Now, if I hit enter and if my prompt comes back, so if I get this green thing that says JP Scott Desktop, etc., it worked. So you can see that it worked. Now what you've done is you've let Git know the username, the person who's going to be using Git. All right. And the other thing that we have to do in here, it's almost the same thing, but we have to put in here our email address. All right. Now I'm going to change this one too, because of course that's not my email. I'm going to, as strongly as I can, suggest you use your Rankin email. Now my Rankin email is set up differently than yours. So if your name is John Smith, your Rankin email is probably john_smith@insiderankin.org. That's what you would put in. All right, so those are the 2 commands. And if I hit enter, and if again it comes back with my prompt, now it worked. Now I have let Git know who I am as a user, and I'm letting it know the email address that's associated with what I'm going to be doing in Git. All right. So those are the two commands that you have to put in, but you only have to put them in once. The only reason that you might have to put it in more than once is if somehow you removed Git and then decided to reinstall it. Then you might have to do it again. I don't know. All right. But that should be it. Now, I want to go back for a second to this. Why am I going back to this? If you're the kind of person who has time and would like to learn more about Git than what I've just shown you, or more than you'd get from watching Colt for 15 minutes, you can go over here and there is a whole book that's free. You can read it online, or you can download it in PDF format, in EPUB format, or in Mobi format. And it's called Pro Git. Now you'll notice it's old. It's 9 years old, but Git hasn't changed. They've made updates to it. But if you want more than what I just gave you, you can go ahead and take a look at that. And literally, for lack of better words, and I'm not trying to be funny here, just read it to your heart's content. That's it. All right. So going back again in this, what we have now done is we talked about what VS Code, Visual Studio Code is, and we installed it. Then we talked about what Git was, again, a source control manager, and we just installed it. The demo of the use, I'm going to show you that in just a bit. But first, we're going to talk about in here, I guess I didn't put a space there, what GitHub is. All right. Now, what I tried doing in an earlier class, I've already got a GitHub account. All right. And you're about to create one. It's free. You don't get emails from them. All right. Just like with Git here, I've never gotten an email from Git. I've never gotten a GitHub email. All right. But these are the bits of software, the pieces of software you're going to need. All right. So let me go out here to github.com. All right. In fact, I'm not going to do it like this because yours isn't going to look anything like this. All right. I don't want to log out because it wreaks havoc with me when I do that. But let's see. No, I'm gonna log out. Heck with it. Let's see. Manager. Oh my goodness. That's how I never log out, and that's why. Let's see. I think it's here. Settings. Sign out. There we go. Yes, I want to sign out. This is probably what yours looks like. All right. Now, if this is where you are right now, if you went out to github.com right there. So again, I'm keeping track here of all the stuff that I'm going to have to send you today. And that is here for GitHub right there. Okay. Then what you will want to do, you can click sign up right here. I think if you keep going down, there's a sign up down here someplace too. But I would just go right here where it says sign up. Click there. Now I'm going to be able to show you part of it, but not all of it. In here, please put your Rankin email. Now you'll notice if I put in jpscott@rankin.edu and I click continue, it'll say the email is invalid or already taken. And it's already taken because I already have an account there. Pretend for just a minute that I had jpscott at, in fact, we'll do it this way, Jeff_Scott at insiderankin.org. Okay, so that's the equivalent of what you'll put in. Do not put in my name, put in your name. All right. And then click continue. Now it says create a password. I will strongly suggest that whatever you put in for a password, 8 characters or whatever, but if you're going to make it something that means something to you, or you're not going to, write it down. You don't want to forget this. The GitHub people are good, but you have no idea if you forget your password and you have to go and ask for them to get it back, you might get a link to get it back in 10 seconds, or it might take 10 minutes, or it might take a few hours. So I would write it down. Now, if you're the kind of person who says, hey, I've got to have, it's got to be a unique password, it's got to be a different thing, you can always go out here and type in password generator. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you can if you want to. And I can come in here and just, let's see, strong, this one looks good, passwordgenerator.net. And I can say I want it to be 8 characters long, and it can include anything. All right, so I'll say generate password, and you'll notice what it made in here was it made me a password that looks like this. Now that's pretty ugly, but that'd be pretty hard for somebody to guess, typically. All right, so I'm going to put that in. Again, I'm not going to actually create this because I already have a GitHub account. All right, so I'm going to come back into here and I'm going to put that in for my password. Notice it says that it's strong. Now they encourage you to use at least 15 characters. So I could have come back here and I could have made this 16 characters like that and then generated it. That's a lot of stuff. So you can see the difference between what I just did here and this. But if you want a really secure password, that'll be pretty good. Let's use that one. And again, you'll notice it says password is strong. So make sure it's at least 15 characters or at least 8 characters, including a number and a lowercase. So you can have at least, you can set it up any way you want. You can put in special characters. I just did that. But you need to have at least one number in it and at least one lowercase letter. All right. And I think that's only if it's 8 characters. But I think if you make it 15, it can basically have almost anything in it you want. All right. So I'm going to click continue again. And now it says enter a username. What I am going to ask that you enter in for your username is one of 2 things. It's up to you. All right. So I'm going to recommend now mine. I've already got JP Scott Rankin. That is my username. So you can see I can't use that. But I'm going to recommend that either you put in your first name, your last name, Rankin, or your first initial last name, Rankin. So there is a JP Scott. I don't know if there's a J Scott Rankin. All right, see that that's available. Now the JP Scott is not. All right, but I'd like it to be something you can easily remember and work with. All right, so I'm going to click continue. And now it says, would you like to receive product updates? That's up to you. All right, again, I clicked yes, but I've never gotten anything from them that I can remember. Okay, so I'm going to come in here just a sec. So I'm going to come in here and I am going to put in a Y. Again, it's up to you. And I'll click continue. And now it says verify your account. It says, please solve this puzzle so we know you're a real person. I don't know what the puzzle is. I've not seen this. This wasn't in here previously. Please solve this puzzle so we know you're a real person. All right, use the arrows to indicate, to rotate the animal to face in the direction of the hand. Okay, and I'll click submit. And it says that was done. It says that was not quite right. Okay. Make sure the animal is facing in the same direction. Oh, that the hand is pointing towards. Well, now it should be right. They're both pointing that way. All right. Now use it to make sure the animal to face the same direction as the hand. I thought I just did that. That's pointing that way, and that looks like it's pointing that way. Use the arrows to rotate the animal to face the direction of the hand. All right, now it says it's okay. Now, when I click create account, and I'm not going to create it, usually what happens is you'll get an email on your Rankin account. All right, that'll tell you, it'll have some of the information on it. But if you've done all of that, you will have your account created. Now, again, I'm not going to do that. I don't want to do that because I've already got an account. So let's talk about what's going to happen then. So let me go in here and type in github.com. All right, I'm going to see if I can sign in. All right, I'm in. Now, earlier this semester, and if you didn't get it, you can get it right now. All right, what I sent to everyone earlier this semester is I sent you an email that looked like this. And it said, good afternoon, shown below is the GitHub repository. All right. Now you can probably get to this even without GitHub, but you're going to need it for your work. So if I click this, I'm back in GitHub. This is a repository. This has all of the information in it that you're going to need this semester. What do I mean? It has your homeworks in it. It has your labs in it. It has your written tests in it. It does not have the hands-on tests in it. Those are given out the day, and they're the day that they're due. All right. But it's got your labs. It's got your homeworks. It's got PowerPoints. It has the syllabus in it again, if you don't have that. So if you get to this, you can click code and click download zip. And then again on your in your downloads folder, you'll get all that information. It'll take a second because there's a bit to download. I mean, I've got it out there, and some of you already have this anyway, probably, but regardless. There it is. It's a zip file. So I'm going to grab it right here, and I'm going to unzip it. You can keep the word master on there. You don't really need it. All right, it's up to you. But mine is AWD1000 fall 2023 students.zip right there. And I'm going to right mouse click on it and say extract it, which means unzip it. And again, this will take, anywhere from a minute to 3 or 4 minutes. It depends on your internet connection. All right, yours could go faster than mine if you've got a better internet connection than I do. All right, but eventually it should all open, and it shouldn't be more than a couple minutes or so. Actually going relatively fast today. Occasionally when I'm lecturing like this, what will happen, I'm warning you for lack of better words, is there'll be like a blip where my internet will go out for just a second and then it'll come back on again. That shouldn't affect you, except for a couple seconds. What might happen is you might not hear anything from me until it comes back. All right, so here it is unzipped. And again, you'll notice in here then I've got there's the labs. There's the slides from the book. There's the download, all the stuff that Muroc puts in the book, all their applications. They give you all the applications, the examples, and they give you the exercises at the end of the chapter, both the exercises themselves and the solutions for them. And then finally, here are the written tests that you're going to do. All right, if I open one of these up, what you'll notice is they're multiple choice. And we're not going to do it today, but probably on Wednesday, we will, as a class, do the written tests for chapters 1, 2, and 3. So if you watch that day or you watch the tape later and you just fill that in, they're worth 10 points each. That'll be 30 points you'll have right in the bag. Right? Worry about those later, but that's everything that's in here. Okay? So that's all fine and dandy. All right. But what about if you go in the other direction? So in other words, let's suppose for a second that, okay, I've got this thing in here on my desktop. I don't need this anymore now. I can exit. But remember this thing that we opened up here that I called garbage. All right. So what do I do there? Well, there's different ways you can do this, but I'm going to show you the way I use because I think it's the most straightforward way. Not everybody agrees with what I'm about to tell you. All right. So I'm going to open this folder up, not in Visual Studio Code, but just here. All right. And again, I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to choose Git Bash here, right there. And again, I'm opening this up. Why didn't I use the one I had before? Because that was on the desktop, and this is actually where I am. So in this garbage folder. All right. Now, if you look on here, you'll notice I do not, repeat, I do not have a folder in here that's called dot or period git. But notice when I type in git init and I hit enter, there's my folder. Now, if you do this and you don't get that, all right, then what's happening is you're not showing hidden files. All right, you say, well, what the heck does that mean? All you have to do is just go out and Google show hidden files and folders. And if you do that, they'll give you from Microsoft support, it's literally, that's what you got to do. You open up File Explorer. So I'm going to right mouse click and choose File Explorer. And then I have to choose View on here. Somewhere in here is View. There, View. And make sure where it says Hidden Items, make sure that that is checked. That's all you got to do. And you only should have to do it once. Then you can close this. And that's it. All right. So why am I showing you all this stuff? Because I just created this thing in here, this git init. I wish I wouldn't have called it garbage because that's not a good name, but it's okay. So I've now done that. So I've just basically created an empty Git repository that's got that name, garbage dot, basically dot git in a garbage. Now I want to add everything that's in here. I want to add all of it to this empty repository. So I type in git add, and if I want to add everything, I just put in a period. Git space add space period, and I hit enter. Sometimes it'll come back and show you stuff. Sometimes it'll just be empty. All right. All of this stuff that I'm showing you right now, as I told you earlier, I'm going to give you this list of Git commands. It's all in there. So if you're saying I'm going too fast, it's all in there. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to commit what I've done. Right now it's in what's called a staging area, but I want to commit it so that I can push it from Git to GitHub. So I'm going to type in here git commit, and you need to say -m so you can put in a message. And I'll put in here just garbage site first commit. You can call it, you can put in there whatever you want. All right, and I'm going to hit enter. And you'll notice it told me that I've got two files in there, one called styles.css, one that's called index.html. Now, I'm almost ready to push it from Git to GitHub, but GitHub has no idea that this thing called garbage even exists. So I have to let it know. So back in here, and I'm sorry, I know it sounds like I'm going through a million things here. We're going to keep doing this stuff over and over and over again. And after a while, it'll be like, oh, you don't have to even do that anymore. I know what I'm doing. All right. So I'm going to try to come in here and set up a new repository by clicking new. And then I'm going to go over here. You may or may not get this, but under a name, I want to give it my name, JP Scott Rankin. And I want to put in here garbage. And you'll see garbage is available. When you do yours, not mine, mine are always public. You want yours to be private. All right. Because if you don't, if somebody else knew what your login was, they could look at all your stuff and steal your work or copy your work. But I'm going to keep mine private, just like it is. I'm sorry, public, just like it is. You want if I use something that was already in here, if I already called something garbage, for example, it wouldn't let me give that a name. You can give it a description, but you don't have to. You can give it a README file, but you don't have to. I'm just going to click Create Repository. And what you'll notice now is now my screen's going to change. And it says, oh, you just made a new repository out on GitHub called garbage.git. Yes, I did. I'm going to grab that line that you see right there, that line, and I'm going to copy it to the clipboard. Right mouse click and choose copy. Then I'm going to come back to here and I'm going to copy that line in here and hit enter. Now it says, oh, when I'm about to push this thing from Git to GitHub, I want it to go to a GitHub repository under an account named JP Scott Rankin, and I want it to go to a repository called garbage.git. How do I do that? I type in git space push space -u space origin, and here's where it gets a little weird. Notice they say here main. Sometimes you put in, for some of you, try it just like they show it right there. Git space push space -u origin main. My account is older. And back in the days when things weren't politically correct as they are today, I had to type in master instead of main. They've changed it from master to main. That said, sometimes for some reason, with some of the user accounts, it still wants master and not main. I have no idea why that is. But now it's going to push it. I'm going to hit enter. It's going to spin for about, well, not very long. All right. But now notice if I go and refresh my screen, there's garbage. So I've just shown you how you can go in and create a GitHub repository on GitHub and also set up the steps on Git to push that stuff out there. And again, if you say you did it way too fast, I'm never going to remember that. This is how you can find the current version of Git you're working with. These are the two commands I had you put in. All right. This was that git init to create the local folder. This was the git add to add everything to the staging area. This was the thing that we did where we added it, basically the link from Git to GitHub. You can check it by doing that. If you make a mistake, you can put in that. And this is how you push it. Yours might be master, yours might be main. And I will add onto here those URLs. Well, there they are. There's Cold Steels for Git and Cold Steels for GitHub. I've already shown you on here the one from, let me close a bunch of this junk that I've got open here. So I've already shown you Cold Steels learn Git in 15 minutes. He also has a learn GitHub in 20 minutes. So again, if you don't think I gave you enough, you can go out to that one and you will get the URL for this. All right, not there, but you get the idea. All right. So what we've been doing then, because I want to keep going back to it, especially as we're starting, is since our last break, we talked about what Visual Studio Code is and we installed it. Then we went in, we talked about what Git was and we installed it. Then we went in and we just finished talking about what GitHub was and we installed it. Plus, I did show you a quick little demo. All right. So what we are going to do in just a couple minutes is we're going to take, another break. After we take that break, then I'm going to show you how we can build that first page, the one that we didn't add the stuff to yet. It looks pretty ugly, wherever the heck it was. This one. You won't have the images. Don't worry about it. I'll send you all the images. Everything that we work on today, everything I do, if you're more comfortable just watching, just watch. Because I will push this thing out to GitHub at the end of the period. And you'll be able to go there and download it if you want to and take a look at it. So we will do that in between about 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. All right. And then we will go over chapter 1. And that'll be it for today. And then tomorrow we'll continue on with this, but we'll also do chapters 2 and 3. All right. We'll also continue on with this on Wednesday. And as I mentioned, I'll give you this pre-test. The first test that you take in here, you have to take my word for it. Some of you will probably finish it in 10 minutes. The first hands-on test. Some of you might struggle a little. It might take you an hour or maybe more. I don't know. All right. It is 10:06. Let's just take a short break and let's come back at 10:15. And at that time, I'm going to start building this page that you see right in front of you. And as we build it, I will talk to you about the steps and the stuff that's in it. So come back, please, at 10:15. Be right back. All right, it is 10:15, so I'm going to start up. And what I'm going to do, just for a while at least, is we're going to start to build this site. It'll look terrible. Don't worry about it. It's totally fine. We'll fix it all up as we get going. All right, but I'm inside of Visual Studio Code, and I have that garbage thing opened up. All right, now, even if you've been totally following along, and as I'm typing, if you've been typing, I'm going to ask that for about the next 2 minutes, don't type in what I'm going to type in. And if you say why, watch. All right, so I'm going to put in some stuff here. Oops, click in here to make it active. All right, you'll notice there's something called IntelliSense in here, which means it says, oh, you put in a less than sign followed by an exclamation point. Do you want doc type? If I want to accept that, which I do, I can just hit the tab key and it fill that in for me. Okay, well, that's nice. And I put in an opening tag and it automatically gave me a closing tag. That's kind of nice. I'm going to have this disappear for now, so I've got more room on my screen. The way I make it appear and disappear is just to click on it. That's how I can click on it to make it disappear and reappear. So I'm going to say this. And like I said, I want to show you why you won't want to type this in just a second. Either. I think that's everything. Okay. I don't know how to make that any smaller. I don't think I can. Okay. Couple more lines and then we'll talk about why you won't want to do this. In fact, I forgot something here. Okay. Now, what I have on the screen right here is what could easily be referred to as a template. We're going to go over what every line in here means. I'm going to do it right now, but do it kind of quickly. This means that the document type that we're using is the newest, the latest and greatest, which is called HTML5. It used to be when you put in a doc type statement like that, you had to type in line of 2 or 3 lines worth of stuff. They changed it years ago. All right. This is the beginning of the document, technically. This is the end of the document. They are tags. This is the beginning tag. This is the ending tag. Do you need to put this in here, which says you're using English? The answer is no. But tomorrow we'll learn how you can do what's called validate this document. And if you don't put in what I've got in blue there, that the language is English, you'll get a documentation warning. It won't fail, but you'll get a warning. All right, by putting that in, this will suppress that warning. A basic web page, once you start to create it, is going to be broken up into 2 sections, a head section and a body section. The head section is all the stuff that doesn't show on the web page. It's system type of stuff. So this says that the character set that we're using is UTF-8. Now, what does that mean? Probably to you, absolutely nothing. But it says we're using the Unicode character set. What does that mean? Back in the olden days, like when I was your age, we didn't use Unicode. We used what was called ASCII, ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange. That worked fine when all we had to worry about was the English language. We weren't doing things, internationally. We are now. I remember many years ago, I went to a computer show. I don't know how many years ago it was, probably 25 years ago. And I thought it was so cool because they had two computers. And on one end, the gentleman was typing into his computer in English. And on the other end, there was a young lady and it was coming out on her end in Japanese. Well, why am I telling you that? Because the ASCII character set that I used only accounted for 225 characters. And that's all your upper and lowercase letters, all of your numbers, all of your special characters, like an @ sign, a % sign, etc. Well, 255 doesn't cut it when we're talking about doing things internationally. So now there's Unicode, and that accounts for over 100,000 different characters. So that says we're using that character set. All right. And these two lines are what are called meta tags. Meta means data about data. All right. So this next thing says we want our site to be responsive. And what we're saying here is we want it to look good, whether we're looking at it on a desktop, a laptop, a phone, a tablet, or something else. All right. What we're using to look at it is called our viewport. And we want it to, initially at least, take up 100% of the screen whenever it can. That's what that stuff means. This title that you see right here, this title, what you're going to see in a minute is that's what's going to appear up here. That's going to be. Later, we'll also talk about how you can create what's called a favicon. So we can change this and we can put, you could put a little picture of yourself in there or whatever you wanted. It's no big thing. All right. So I showed you that. And the body is where you put all of your actual code you want to show on the screen. So if I come in here and I say, hello there, how are you? All right. And now I go, and don't worry about what I'm doing here, but I'll show it to you in a minute. I'm going to open this with Live Server. What you'll see on here, hello, that's what was in the body part. All right, so that's fine and dandy. Now, what it looked like originally was we didn't have anything in here, and this said document. Other than that, that's the only two changes I've made. But I said to you, don't type this in. And you might say, yeah, why did you tell us to do that? Because you don't need to. If I come in here and just type in just an exclamation point and I hit tab, all right, that's something that's called Emmet. E-M-M-E-T-T, I believe is how it's spelled. Might have one T on the end, I don't remember. But there are a ton of shortcuts in this editor, and I'm showing you one of them right now. And if you tell me, I don't know how many characters, how many keystrokes are in here, I can type quickly if I need to or want to. But if I can just type in an exclamation point and hit tab, I'm going to choose that every time. Now there's more stuff in here. There's more stuff in here, just so you know, that we can add in the head section. I'm not putting anything else in there right now. All right, let's just change this title to St. Louis. Just for now. You can change it again later if we want to. All right. Now you'll notice if I put St. Louis there and I save this, all right. So if I save this, if I come back in here now, okay, and I open it up again, Now it says St. Louis up in my heading. All right, we'll talk, like I said, about what all of this stuff means as we go on in here. I'm not trying to confuse anybody. I'm not trying to throw anything past anybody or anything else. All right, but I want to build part of this just so you can see, so we can see some of the stuff that goes in here. All right, one of the things we're going to want to do, and we'll get to this tomorrow, is we'll want to be able to come in here and have this file be able to link to this file. This is index.html, but we want to be able to link. We want to be able to link to the styles file. Well, here's another shortcut. I'm going to type in the word link and I'm going to hit tab. All right. And now what I want to do is I want to come in here and say css/styles.css. And again, if this is making virtually no sense to you, please don't let it worry you. But I want to show you why that line is important. I'm going to go into this styles file here, and I'm going to come in and say, let's see if we can come up with, let's just reverse it. So I'm going to say background. I want to do it. How do I want to do this? We'll do it like this. I'll put in body. And I'm going to put in here, I think this will work, background color. I'm just going to reverse it. So I'm going to say black. And then the color of my text, which is just color, I'm going to make that white. Okay. So I've said I want everything in here to have a black background with white text. All right. Why did I do that? Well, I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to run this again. Nope. I'm going to open it with I serve, not stop it. And there it is. Now, why isn't my code showing that? I didn't put any in yet. All right. And I'll start putting it in now, but you can see there is a communication now that is taking place between those two files. So if I come back in here now and I'm going to just type in right here, I'll put H1, welcome to my website. All right. And now I bring this up again. There you go. Now this is bigger than it would typically be. I just made my screen size here bigger. It normally would look more like this. All right. But I'm just trying to show you as I'm doing things, what's going on in here. All right. Now, if you see, geez, I don't like that. I don't like a black back. I'm more used to it being the other way. I can just go back to here and either remove these because it defaults to white and black, or I can put white here and I can put black here. All right. So I just flip them, in other words. So if I come back to here now it looks more the way you're probably used to seeing it. All right. So, I mean, what have we done in here so far? Not too much, really. All right. We let Emmett build a template for us, and we added what's called a heading 1. Okay. And I'm going to change this. Instead of H1, I'm going to type in here, instead of welcome to my website, I'm going to type in here H1 heading. You can see why you're doing that. I'm going to show you right now. There's actually 6 of these. As the number gets bigger, the size of the heading gets smaller, kind of almost counterintuitive to the way you think it would be. So again, as the number here gets bigger, so this will say H2, this will say H3, oops, H3, H4, H5, and H6, like that. So notice now when I go in here and I run it, you can see how they're getting smaller with each one. All right. And all I'm trying to do in here is just show you a little bit of stuff. That's it. You don't have to worry about understanding it or anything. We're going to go over some of it in just a bit when we talk about chapter 1 in our book. All right. And some of the rest of it won't make a whole heck of a lot of sense right now. All right. But I'm just trying to go over a few things with you. That's all. So I've shown you now a few different sizes or the different sizes of headings. There is no H0 and it stops at 6. So that's all of them. So what if I want to have basically, I don't know, what if I want a paragraph worth of stuff? Well, then we use what are called P tags. P for paragraph. All right. And now is the time for all good people to come to the aid of their party. Now that's real hard to read because it's scrolled right off. I can close this to give me some more room, but I still can't see everything. If I want to see everything, all right, then I can go up. Now, where is it? Why isn't that showing here? There is a word wrap here. I've got to remember where it is, but it's in one of these. There it is. Under view, there's a word wrap. And you'll see how it's wrapping now. All right, so I'll be able to see everything on my screen at one time. So now I put a paragraph in here. What did that do? Well, there's my paragraph. And you can see the paragraph is about the same size, it looks like, as maybe an H4. All right. And again, all I'm trying to do in here is show you a few things. All right. I'm not showing you this thinking, oh, yeah, this is going to turn you on or turn you off. I want to show you some of the things that we're going to be talking about together as we go on in here. All right. And I always give this analogy. Maybe it's a good one. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I've got 3 daughters. All right. In fact, one of them is already married and has 2 kids. But the point is, I still remember the first day we took them to swim lessons. All right. And 2 of my daughters are only about 10 months apart. All right. And the oldest one literally tried to just jump into the deep end. She saw the pool. She ran down there. She didn't care. She had no fear. Well, of course, we didn't let her do that. And she didn't like it because at the beginning of the class, for the whole first day, most of the first week, there was a real little kiddie pool, like a wading pool. She was in there, and then they brought them into the shallow end. Well, it's more or less along the lines of we're learning this stuff with the crawl, walk, run mentality. We're starting very slow, and we're starting very slow on purpose. All right. Okay, let's go over just a couple more things that you want to put in here. Okay. All right. If I decide, we don't really need to show in here all these other headings, these H2 and H, I could remove them. I could remove them. Or I can do what's called comment them out. All right, which means they'll still show to us on the screen, but when we run the program, it's as though they're not there. And I do that by putting in a less than sign and an exclamation point, minus, minus. And then when I finish, I put in a minus, minus with a greater than sign, like that. So now you'll notice that if I do that, I've commented these out. And if I go and run it and look at it again, it looks a lot different. All right. So let's just talk about a couple more things. And again, these are all things that we're going to end up going over as we start in here. But I just decided to start it really, really slow like this. All right. So I'm going to put in a couple lists here. Okay. The first list won't matter. So I'm going to put in another one of these tags like we had up here. In fact, let's change this back to like welcome to our website. Okay. And I'm going to go online because I want this to look at least somewhat realistic. And I'm going to type in here chocolate chip cookie recipe. And again, you might say, what the heck are you doing? Just bear with me if you would for a minute. I don't want 100 of them, so no, I don't want that. So let's see. That'll work. All right. So what am I doing here? Well, I want to grab everything that's over here. Everything. Okay. And again, bear with me if you would, just for a minute. Okay. I don't want this now as the time either. I'm going to say, welcome to our website. Shown below are two lists. The first shows the ingredients for chocolate chip cookies. The second shows the cooking steps. All right. So I'm going to paste this in and we're going to work on it in just a minute. So don't worry about how it looks. Okay. So I want to put in the ingredients. Okay. So I'm going to put in what's called an unordered list right here. Be filled. This might look a little funky, this 1/8. So I'm going to just do it like this. All right. All right. And what else do we have? All right. So I fumbled my way through here and I have given you all of the stuff that's in here right now. Okay. And there's a reason I'm doing it, and there's a reason I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So there's all my ingredients. So let me go and run this. And there you see it. Those are all my ingredients. It looks like a repeated flour. We'll remove that in a second. But everything is in here. All right. I think you would agree with me on this, that if I am going to go and grab these ingredients, it doesn't matter at all the order in which I grab them. In other words, I can grab the salt first, then I can go and grab the butter, then I can grab the vanilla, then I can grab the eggs, etc. Or I could do it in matter. All right. We have created what is called an unordered list. That's what UL stands for. And an unordered list is filled up with list items. That's what that stands for. Now, we're going to make another list down here, but this will be an ordered list. Why? Because the order will matter. All right. Why? Because these are the cooking steps in here. And where did we put it? There it is. And we've got 6 of them, it looks like. All right. So let me see if I can put that in here again. It'll look ugly for a minute, but we'll fix it right away. You can see now I'm putting them on the same line. Previously, I put them on their own lines. It doesn't matter. You can do it whatever way you want. Just about finished here. Press the right key, please. All right. All right, so now I put in two lists. The first was unordered because it had a UL. This one is an ordered list. So you can see the difference. All right. And you've got your choice. There are different types of little icons you can put in here. You can even put your own in, and we'll learn how to do this. In here, you can have numbers. You can have letters. You can have basically just about anything that you want to put in there. But what I am trying to show you here is these are two different types of lists. This is what's called an unordered list. This is what's called an ordered list. All right. And again, I realize, you might say, well, this is really simplistic, Jeff. Yes, it is. But I'm showing you some of the preliminaries that we have to go through. So what we have looked at in here thus far, all right, is we came in and I first showed you, I manually typed this in, and then I removed it all and replaced it by saying you can use the built-in help in the editor by just putting in an exclamation point and hitting your tab key. Next, we went in and we talked about the different types of headings. There are 6 of them. The smaller the number, the bigger the heading. All right, so I showed you all of them, and then I also showed you how to comment this out, which meant that even though it shows on the screen, it's not rendered as part of our web page. All right. Then we went from there and we looked at how to create our own paragraph. Right. We put that in. From there, we went on and we said, okay, all right, here's a couple different types of lists. All right. And the first was an unordered list. And just like we did with the other one, we could, if we wanted to, we could put all these on the same line. Each one of the things on their own line. It doesn't matter. Many times in much of the stuff that you do in web design, it's free flowing. In other words, it really doesn't matter exactly how you do it. Sometimes, of course, it will matter. And we'll get to all that stuff. But again, you can see this now, and if I run it again, it's going to look exactly the same. It did condense this down quite a few lines. So we looked at the unordered list where order does not matter. And then we looked at the ordered list where it does matter. If I decided to preheat the oven to 375 if I put that as my last step, that wouldn't make any sense because I wouldn't be able to bake for 12 to 15 minutes or until lightly browned. All right. So like I said, I'm just trying to show you a few things here. All right, let's look at a couple more. Let's grab this, and this is going to probably look ugly, but it's okay. So let's see. Let me go out, close a couple of these, and we'll go out here. And I'm going to grab a picture of chocolate chip cookies. All right. And this one looks pretty realistic. So I'm going to right mouse click on it. In fact, I'll click on it here, and I want to see what it looks like here. And I don't want to sign in. You're getting more and more of this stuff. It used to be you could just grab a picture and there was not a problem. There. All right. So there's a picture of a cookie. Now I can either right mouse click on this and say save image as, and I can save it out to what I'd shown you earlier. I've got an images folder, and I can save it there. I can call it whatever I want. It's now called single chocolate chip cookie. Okay, I'm going to just change it. You can call it whatever you want, just so it's easy. I'm going to call it CCC, chocolate chip cookie.jpg. I can do that. All right. Now I can come back in here into my program that we're working on, and I can say, hey, I've got an image. All right. The source, or where it is, it's in a folder called images, and underneath there, it's in a thing called ccc.jpg. And just in case you can't find it, I'm going to give you some alternative text, and it'll just say picture of a chocolate chip cookie, like that. All right. And I'm going to run this program, and you'll notice there's my picture. It's a lot bigger than I'd want. We'll worry about that at another time. But that's how you can add an image. So let's break that one down. You'll notice, unlike all the other tags we've looked at thus far, this is what's called a self-closing tag. There's a beginning image tag. There is no ending image tag. All right. Why did they do that? I didn't make the rules. I'm just playing the game. All right. This says that we want to use an image. The source of that image is it's under my folder called images, and it's called ccc.jpg. There's different kinds of images. We will learn about those in a later lecture. There's JPEGs like this, there's GIFs, there's PNGs, there's WebP, and there's other ones as well. This says, if for some reason you can't find it, it'll probably show with a red X. So I'm going to change the name of this. I'm purposely putting an error in there. And I want to see if this is going to end up printing that on my screen. There it is. Picture of a chocolate chip cookie. Used to be you'd get a red X in there as well. But it brings up a really important point. There's two reasons that you always, always, always should put what's called an alt tag, what I have in blue there, whenever you put in an image. One of them I just showed you. So if you put the wrong name in, it'll put something on the screen, something will render. The other thing is, if you work for a website, all right, and you are trying to make money, or if you work for a website and what you're trying to do with that website is provide some kind of a service, whether you make money or not, you want everybody's money potentially, or you want everyone to look at your website. Why am I telling you this? Because with the alt tag like this, if somebody has a browser for the blind, doesn't matter how nice your chocolate chip cookie picture looks, they can't see it. But with a browser for the blind, it will read to them picture of a chocolate chip cookie. And I've always told people, the more public you make a website, the more important it's going to be that you are what's called ADA compliant. What ADA is the American Disabilities Act, which means that everyone should have the right to look at your website to use whatever's on the website, etc. You always want to shoot for making your website as ADA compliant as you possibly can. All right. So let's see. One thing I didn't show you, and I can bring it up now, but we're not going to spend any time on it at all. If you look at this site, you've seen it now, but if you look at it, not a lot of rhyme or reason to it. In other words, on a lot of websites, what you have up on the top here is you've got some kind of a navigation area where you can go from page to page. We haven't provided that. Sometimes on the bottom of a page, you'll have a footer down here. That's typically what's down on the bottom would be a footer. What's up at the top will typically be called a header. All right. One of the things that happened, I'm going to give you a very quick little history lesson here, and I mean quick. All right. Back in about, I think it was around mid 80s to 1990, sometime in there, somebody came up with a wild idea and they said, you know what? HTML is dead. We don't need to use it anymore. Let's make something new. And they did. They called it XML. So HTML is the hypertext markup language. XML is the extensible markup language. What's the biggest difference? With XML, you make up your own tags. All right. So if you're a carpenter, and if I was going to use a tag called table, it might be a wooden table that has 4 legs in it. All right. But if I was a mathematician, a table would be something totally different. Well, time went on, and a lot of the people who said that this XML was a great thing were not enamored by it. All right. It's still used today, and it has its place. But I think it was around the early to mid 90s, people came back and said, hey, let's bring back HTML, but let's make it more up to date. All right. And when they did that, that's when they decided to make HTML what is referred to as semantic HTML. So in other words, you're going to learn semantic in here. What does that mean? Well, if we wanted to, on the bottom of our page here, on the very bottom of our page, I could come in here. It's totally fine to do. I can come in here and on the very bottom, right before my ending body tag, I could come down here and I could put in, a paragraph, and I could say written by J.P. Scott Incorporated. And I want it to say 2023, but I want it to say copyright. And I don't want the word copyright in there, which I could do. So I'm going to use this. I'm going to put copy, and then I'm going to put in there 2023. And that's fine. This will work just fine. So when I run this and you look at it, down at the bottom, under my cookie picture, there it is. Written by J.P. Scott Inc. 2023. Okay, not a problem. But since we want to be semantic in this class, we're going to do this. We are going to have a section that's called footer, and we're going to put it inside of there. Now, what's interesting is that when I run it, it doesn't look any different. Totally the same as it looked before. But what I'm starting to introduce to you is the use of semantics in HTML. So what we're going to end up putting up on the top here, all right, and this confuses some students, but I want to show it to you. This is the head section. This is all the stuff that does not show on the screen. Head, H-E-A-D. But what I'm going to add here, right here, is not head, but I'm going to add header. That's what you typically put at the top of the page, but it's actual content. All right, now I can go and move this in here, the one that we had before. And guess what? It's not going to look any different at all. It's going to look exactly the same as it did. Welcome to our website. Boom, boom, boom. Everything looks the same. But what we're starting to do to this is we're starting to bring in the semantic elements that make up this. All right. And finally, the last thing I want to show you just for now, all right, is I can go in here and there are literally a lot of ways. I'm just telling you this now. There are a lot of ways that I can go through here and start grabbing this image and making it smaller. All right. And I'm going to show you one. It's probably not even the best way to show you, but it's the easiest for right now. And that is I'm going to come back into here. I'm going to open up this styles thing and I'm going to tell it, hey, when I have an image, I want it to have a height of 100 pixels. And don't worry, we're going to go over what all of it means, and a width of 100 pixels, just like that. All right, now I'm going to bring this up again and run this. And you'll notice it changed quite a bit in size. So what I've attempted to do in here in this last 45 minutes or so is to come in and show you some of the kinds of things we're going to be working with. All right. We are going to spend most of the first 3 chapters of the book. And let me go to that for a second here. Wrong book. There we go. So in just, we're in a few minutes, we're going to go over chapter 1, an introduction to web development. Tomorrow, we're going to go over chapters 2 and 3, how to code, test, and validate a web page, and how to use HTML to structure a web page. All right. Then, after we get done with that, next week, we're going to bring in chapters 4, 5, and 6. And then we will take something that looks kind of ugly the way you've seen it, something that looks like this, and we'll make it look like a real site would look. Plus, we'll bring in additional pages and we'll link up to those pages. The only thing I really haven't shown you here, as far as the beginning stuff that I just wanted to run through quickly with you, and let me show you that right now. Let's see. This is where that cookie recipe was. It's right here. All right. Easy chocolate chip cookie recipe. So let me come in here and I'm going to put in another paragraph. And I'm going to say this recipe was taken from, yeah, that's pretty big. Let's just say Truvia.com, from the Truvia website. Now, right now, that's not going to be what I want it to be, and that's spelled wrong, but I want Truvia to have an underline. I want to click on it and boom, I want to go to that website. How do I do that? All right, I come in here and I say A for anchor tag, href for hypertext reference, equal. All right, I want to remove this word Truvia for right now, and website. I want to remove both those. All right, and I'm going to put this in. All right, in fact, we don't even need, the period doesn't have to be in there. All right, so I've also shown you how to put in an anchor tag. All right, what did that do? It's easiest to show it to you. This recipe was taken from the Truvia website. I click there, and there I am. Now, what I just showed you quickly was what's considered to be bad internet etiquette or bad netiquette. Because what happened was I went right from my page to their page. Okay, and to some users, it might look like it's the same website. I don't want to do that. I want this to open up in its own new page. So when I get done with this, I'm going to put in here target, well, underscore blank, which means open that on its new blank on its own blank page. So when I open it now, okay, there it is right here. But when I click on it, notice there's the green one, then that one. It's still open, but I open this now on its own page. All right. That's pretty much what I wanted to run through with you as far as what's new in here. Just a couple of the basics. Hopefully not enough where I've turned you off, just the opposite. Hopefully enough where you want to learn more. All right. But I just gave you some of the stuff that's in here. All right. And I'll save all of this, and put it out there. So if you want to play with it or whatever, you can. How do I do that? All right. Well, I'm going to go back to here. All right. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to, let's see, just to be sure, I'm going to save everything. All right. Now I'm just going to close this. Okay. So it's all closed. I'm going to go back to where we were before. Right here, we've got our Git thing. That's even still open. And I'm just going to push it again. So just like we did before, I'm going to say git push -u origin master, just like that, and hit enter. All right. Says everything up to date. Okay, well, we'll see in a minute. All right. But hopefully what's happened now is we did push it. And let's see if we go back into our GitHub page somewhere. Well, let's just call it the github.com. And this was our thing called garbage. There it is. All right. If I refresh the page, didn't take my, oh, I didn't commit it. I'm sorry. Geez, Jeff. So git commit -m added page content, like that, something like that. Okay. Now it says doesn't like something. Change is not staged. Well, what doesn't it like? I'm not sure. I will get it working before the end of class. But the point is, it's now going to come in, hopefully at least within a matter of minutes. I'll look at it during the break, and it's going to update right here. And it'll have the latest and greatest. So if you go out to code and you choose download zip, you'll have everything that I've entered. Okay. It is 11:03. I'm going to give you a mini break. We're going to take about 3 minutes, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to go over chapter 1. So come back, please, in about 3 minutes. I'll leave this up. Okay. Let's come back at 11:07, please. All right, it is 11:07. Let me tell you first why that didn't work, and we'll fix it right now. It's because I did, instead of doing steps 2, 3, and 4, I did step 4 and then step 3, and I never did step 2. If you say, what do you mean? I have to say git add dot. Now I say git commit -m. I can say whatever I want here. So added page content. Now I can say my git push. It'll spin for a second. Well, it shouldn't take too long. There it is. And now if I come back in this page here that says it was last updated an hour ago, if I refresh my screen, just done right now, and you can see the CSS is in there and it's got my styles. The images are in there. It's got the chocolate chip cookie image and my index.html is in there as well. In fact, there it is. All right. Okay. So with that said, let's take a quick look at chapter 1 in here. Okay. So I am back here. Introduction to Web Development. I don't read. I'm not going to sit and read to you. If you've never used a Muroc book before, the way that Muroc books typically work is your page that is on the left-hand side when you open up multiple pages. I think that's the even number page. That's all textual. What's on the right will either be code or tables or an explanation of what was on the left. All right, that's just how all their books work. And we do use the 2 Muroc books in here. We use the Muroc book for the class you would take next semester if this is your first class, the AWD1100 C# programming class. We use a different book for the 3rd semester because they don't have one from Muroc. And in the 4th semester, we use the Muroc ASP.NET book. So, all right. So as you can see, the chapter is broken up into about 5 different sections. All right. Is it really, you know, is it unbelievably important that you understand how web applications work? If you can understand the picture and know the difference between something that's static and something that's dynamic, you're fine. I'm not going to really spend much time on the history of this. I talked a little bit about it before, but I don't want to waste your time. All right. The tools, okay, you can go out online and you can find, if you go out to YouTube, you can find all sorts of things on how to use Emmet, how to use Visual Studio Code, and I'm going to just give you the bare minimum. Why? Because that's what I use. All right. Stuff I'm sure, because I've had people tell me in the past, hey, did you know you can do this? And sometimes I did know it, sometimes I didn't. All right. What we're using is an editor, not an IDE. We'll talk about the difference when we get to that point. How to view deployed pages, you've already seen that a little bit. And we end with these 5 critical issues. So let's get started here. Again, there's a lot of stuff in here on this page. All right. They talk about what the internet is. And really, when you think about it, the internet is what gives us the ability to literally link together not millions, but billions of computers worldwide. Now, they talk about this stuff in here, and it's interesting because if you look at the picture that is on page 5, if you would have looked at this book a few years ago, this would have said desktop computer, desktop computer, desktop computer, or maybe laptop 3 times. But over the last 3 or 4 years, more people now browse the internet using tablets and smartphones than those that do using laptops and desktops. That's not my statistic. It's one that whoever figures out this stuff has put out there. What we typically refer to as the cloud here, there's the internet. So whether you're a desktop, a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone, you're the user in this picture. So when you come in and you type in, so I come in here and I go in here as a user and I type in rankin.edu and I hit enter. What does that do? Well, that message that I just put in there, that address, basically goes out to a server someplace, a Rankin server. All right. And they've got some text that they're able to immediately return to me. On the other hand, if I were to go out there and type in like bookstore, because I wanted to go to the Rankin bookstore, and I went out there, this is going to be different. Why? Because I'm able to go out here and order things. All right. Order books, order shirts, etc. All right. So why am I telling you this? Because it has to do with some of the differences between things being static. In other words, if I go out to the Rankin webpage today and I go out there tomorrow, it'll probably look the same, the main page. It's possible they could change it, but they probably won't. All right. That's static text. So it remains in place until you go out there and order it. All right. When I went out to the bookstore, that wasn't static. All right, that was dynamic text because I can go out and order a shirt. Oh, I didn't mean that color, so I can go change it. So I can constantly be making updates if I need to. So they're trying to show the internet here. And you'll notice it's got LANs and it's got WANs in it. A LAN is a local area network where computers are usually physically connected. They're in the same building or in the same room or whatever. I mean, if you had two computers and you had them hooked up so they could speak to one another, you'd have your own LAN. On the other hand, there's about 40 miles between Rankin Technical College St. Louis and Rankin Technical College Wentzville. Those machines between those campuses can communicate with one another, but they're not physically connected. All right. There's routers and there's other stuff in there, but that's a wide area network. So when you're talking about a physical connection, it's usually a LAN. When you talk about a non-physical connection, when things are hooked up using routers, etc., it's typically a WAN or a wide area network. Now, again, I'm being right here when I say this, all I'm trying to do is to come in here and summarize what they have in the book. I never mean to come in and say, hey, listen to my lectures, you never have to read the book. That isn't true. All right. I am kind of augmenting what's in the book. I am picking out what I consider to be the most important parts. I would never do this and try to not show you something, but I'm sure stuff falls through the cracks. So it is imperative. It's really in your best interest to always read the chapters. All right. They mentioned the local area is typically referred to as an intranet. Yeah, it can be. And there's even extranets. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different terminology that can be used in here. All right. All right, so what's the difference then? Typically, when you use a static web page, there's only one server involved. So I went in here and using my laptop, I typed in www.rankin.edu. That made what was called an HTTP or a hypertext transfer protocol request. That request was immediately answered by a Rankin web server as part of a HTTP or hypertext transfer protocol response. So this whole thing, I'm requesting, it's responding. I'm requesting, it's responding. We're on the request side with basically what we do in this class. All right. So as it says, HTML is used to mark up pages, and a static one, it typically stays on the server and it doesn't change. It's typically a file with an extension of .htm or .html. And the request and response is what I just mentioned to you. When I did this and I put in rankin.edu and it showed me this page, so with me coming in here and just putting in rankin.edu and hitting enter, that's called rendering the page. That's what it's doing right here. It is rendering or showing me the page. All right. Oops. All right. Now you can contrast that with a dynamic web page. I showed you an example, but let's look at an even better one. That is, if I go out to Amazon.com, oops, I guess I had to type it in correctly. What is it going to do? Well, it's going to remember in here, all right, all the stuff I've looked at recently or anything it thinks they can sell me, all right? And when my granddaughter comes over, she uses my computer. So that's why you can see there's some Dr. Seuss stuff and some Trinity and Beyond and other stuff. All right, but the point is, it's showing me stuff. But if I go in here and I say books, and I change this and I decide rather, I want to see what kind of HTML books, so HTML and CSS. Now it's going to another server someplace online to give me what I asked for. The reason I'm showing you that is when I just went out to Amazon, basically what it was providing me was static information. When I went to and asked for a certain type of book, dynamic information. And the difference is, as it shows there, more than one server is going to be involved. All right. So when we did the first one, when we did the static, imagine all the stuff that's in here was not there. It just went into request and the same server responded. When it's a dynamic, you send it to a server, which typically sends it off to one or more other servers, and then it comes back and you get the response. And that's the big difference between them. Oftentimes it's a database server. We may not do anything in this class at all with databases, or if there's time in the last week, we might do something simple with them. We'll see. All right. Some different languages. And again, I'm not going to read any of these. There are some browsers. I've already recommended that you use Chrome in here. If you decide you're going to use one of the other ones, you can still get everything to work. Your screens may not look the same as mine when we do things. All right. So those are different browsers. Here's some of the scripting languages. Here we teach C and we teach ASP.NET. All right. We don't teach anything else that's shown on this page. All right. You get 4 classes. All right. There's only a certain number of things with you. All right. So how client-side JavaScript fits into web development. And they'll show you some pictures here. Maybe you've seen this kind of thing already. This is an example of an image swap. So for instance, if I wanted this shirt, but I wanted it in that color, I'd click on it and the color would change. All right. That kind of thing. Maybe you've seen sites for like dietary places that have an image rollover where they show a person's before and after picture type of thing. All right. Those are all things that can be done with JavaScript. So what HTML brings into your program is structure. It allows you to put in all the stuff we looked at earlier, the paragraphs, the heading tags, etc., all that stuff. What CSS does is it allows you to style the content or the structure that you put in the HTML. And what JavaScript does is it brings interactivity into your program. Okay. All right, and this is just some of the stuff that you can do with it. Now, notice this, because this isn't 100% true anymore. It says JavaScript is a client-side language that is run by the JavaScript engine of a web browser. That is true, but today you can also use JavaScript on the server side, which means on this side. And that's actually what you do in the AWD1000 class. The third class you take in here is you learn how to use JavaScript on the server side. All right. As it says, because JavaScript runs on the client, not in the server, it provides functions that don't require a trip back to the server. This can help an application run more efficiently. So if all the JavaScript you put in is over here, it'll run faster than if you put JavaScript in here as well. Because if you put it in here on this side, it may involve more than one server. So it's going to take some time. And we're going to go over data validation. We'll go over image swaps and rollovers. We'll go over slideshows. You'll see all that stuff. All right. So here's your introduction to HTML. Some of this we've already hit on. Now there's more here than what I showed you, but most of the stuff that's in here, I did show you. Notice the word doc type in there. I made mine capitalized. That's the only tag that it doesn't matter if you make it uppercase, lowercase, or mixed case. All the other tags that you do in HTML should be, by convention, all lowercase. So I already mentioned to you what the doc type was. I mentioned to you what the HTML beginning and end tags are. That shows the beginning of your document and the end of your document. We talked about the head tag, and that will show you things like meta information, title information, and other things that don't show on the web page itself. And the rest of the stuff that's in there in the body, I showed you an H1 tag. We put in an image. We put in some paragraphs. We even added both an unordered list and an ordered list. So we put in more than what's shown here. All right. So as it says, HTML is hypertext markup language, and it is used to define page, web page structure, and content. It's about as simplistic a definition as you can give. All right. Now, if we have a separate file like I showed you with that style.css, all right, that puts in CSS. CSS stands for cascading style sheets. You can put it in one of three ways. The way we're almost always going to do it is the way I just showed you. Put it in its own file. But what if we didn't want to do that? All right. I mean, could we go in, just to show you, in the example that I went through with you before, let me bring that back up again. Just bring it up like this. All right. This was my separate file. So that's putting CSS in its own file. But I can come back into here and up in my head section, all right, I can put in what are called style tags. Like that. And I could say, for example, all my paragraphs that are in here, every paragraph. Okay. So I want all of my paragraphs. Let's say that we want the color to be orange. I don't know why you do that, but just to show it to you. So orange. And let me do a file. Let me run this again. And you can see now that those are orange. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with doing it like that, but it's not recommended. We'll go into why that is a little bit later on in the class. All right. Finally, there's a third way that you can bring it in. What if we wanted to say, what if we wanted the word welcome right here to be in a different color? I don't know why you'd want to do that, but we're going to pretend right now that we want the word welcome to be in its own color. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create what is usually referred to as a span tag. So I'm going to put in here span. Oops, put your fingers on the right keys. Span. All right. And I'm going to say span, and we'll put in here class equal, let's call it highlight. And this isn't a great example, but it's the one I'm going to show you. All right. And then let's say up here, we said that if you use highlight, all right, so if you highlight, then we want them to be green. Again, I'm making all this stuff up as we're going in here. All right, so what did that do? Well, and I put one of those in there where I shouldn't, but you can see it says, and I guess I can't spell, instead of welcome in black like the rest of it, the welcome is now in green. So I want to get rid of that and make that welcome. All right. So I'm showing you different ways that you can do some of this stuff. What you are going to learn in here are the best ways of doing it. No, not the best ways, in my opinion. The best ways of doing things from people who have been doing this much longer than me. All right. But sometimes you'll want to put the CSS in a different way. We will go over that in chapters 4, 5, and 6. All right. So as it says, CSS is to control how pages are displayed. Here's the standards. Notice again, HTML5, I guess it was later than I thought. That was 2008. All right. Before they went from HTML to XML, they also came up with XHTML, which is the extensible hypertext markup language. That isn't used, to my knowledge, much by anybody anymore. XML is still used, and HTML5 is used. All right, you can notice that the last major release of this was 5.1, and even that is 10 years old. CSS is even older. The newest version of CSS is 3.0. And you'll notice that's 24 years old. Right? And what happens is, if you remember, towards the beginning of class, I gave you a couple URLs, and one of the URLs I gave you was W3 Schools. W3, right there, stands for World Wide Web Consortium. And actually, the www that you always get in here, that's World Wide Web. But the W3, it's really called usually the W3C, the World. They come out and they make, and browsers can choose to follow those recommendations or not follow them. More than 99 times out of 100, what will happen is different browsers will choose to follow the recommendations. All right. And I'm going to show you later how you can tell whether they're accepted or not accepted by different browsers. I don't want to go through it right now. As it says, today all modern browsers support HTML 5.1 and CSS 3.0. All right. So again, we're using a text editor. All right. It used to be that one of the most popular text editors to use, you can still use it, was called Brackets. And they come in here and they show you how you can use brackets. I like Visual Studio Code, but there's Brackets. There's, if you look for HTML text editors, you're going to find at least a half dozen. I like Visual Studio Code. I'm not a Microsoft guy at all, but I like using that because to me, it's the easiest to work with. All right, but there's plenty of other ones that you can look at when you go out there. Here's some of them. All right. IDEs, again, we use an IDE starting in the spring semester. Visual Studio, which is, there it is. Not Visual Studio Code that we've been working with today, but Visual Studio is an IDE. What's the difference? An IDE is an integrated development environment. It's got more tools built into it. And you can do things with that that you cannot do with a simple text editor. So you'll notice there's a bunch of these. Some of these are free or have free versions. The version of Microsoft Visual Studio we use is the Community Edition, so it's free. And as it says, typically an IDE goes beyond text editing to provide other features. All right. FTP is not going to be a big thing in here, or not too much at least. It used to be in this class, we had a server, we had our own server for the IT department that was on the St. Louis campus. And when you completed your electronic portfolio that you have to do an update and upgrade every semester, you would go and use FTP to copy your electronic portfolio to the Rankin server. All right. FTP is file transfer protocol. All right. But people, that server kept going down. People kept getting into it and trashing it. So we don't do it like that anymore. I'm not saying FTP isn't used. It is. And typically with an FTP, anybody can go in there. So if I go out to Rankin and I download something from Rankin's site, that's quite often could be done with an FTP download. Uploads are typically harder. Rankin, even if they knew me, I'm not going to be able to take anything and publish it right to Rankin's website. They wouldn't let me do that. All right. So this is FileZilla. We don't have to go over it because we're not going to be using it. All right. How to view a deployed web page? Okay. Well, you've all seen stuff like this, but you may or may not have seen. If I go out to CNN.com, there's the CNN page. Okay, nothing big there. All right, nothing, really that huge or anything. But what you may or may not know is if I right mouse click on an empty area of the web page and I choose, let me view page source. This is all of the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that makes up that web page, probably the whole site. And if I look in here, there are over 50 this on any website you want. You can go out to the website, right mouse click on the site itself in an empty area and choose view page source. All right, it might be a little different if you're using a browser. It might not say view page source, it might say view or something like that if you're using a different type of browser. All right. Here, as it says, are the components of a URL. Now, one thing they don't mention here is you can see the protocol right there, HTTP. You may or may not know the difference, but the main difference between HTTP and HTTPS is the S stands for secure. It's supposed to give you a more secure URL. Why do I even mention that? Because you may or may not have noticed, but when I went out to Rankin, it went there. It didn't go to http://rankin.edu or www.rankin.edu. It went to HTTPS. More and more sites today, I would say the majority of sites are HTTPS and not HTTP here for the protocol because it's more secure. If this was an FTP that we just looked at, it would be FTP:/. All right, so there's the protocol. There's the name of the domain. And there's the file name. If you don't put in a path and you don't put in a file name, the system will look for a file called either index.html or index.htm. If it doesn't find either one, it'll look for a file called default.html or default.htm. If it doesn't find that, it may even give you an error. All right, and that's they talking here how you can omit parts of the URL, just like I put in rankin.edu. I didn't put in https://rankin.edu. How can you access a page on the internet? Most everybody knows this. You can key it in like we did, or you can click a link. All right, like I said, much of the stuff that's in here, all right, much of the stuff that's in here is common sense. The naming recommendations, I'm going to give you my recommendations. Sometimes people don't follow them, and that's your call. When you are creating, oh, that was my internet just flaking out for the first time today. But I'm trying to show you the most generally accepted practices for doing this stuff. All right. The view source I just showed you. That was the right mouse click and choosing view page source. Okay. And again, you'll notice it's different. Here it's view page source. Here it's view source. It might be even something different if you're using yet another browser. So the last thing that's discussed in this chapter are these 5 critical web development issues. And believe it or not, the first one we've already talked about. Users and usability. As an example, and you may have never thought of it this way, but if I'm creating a website for little kids to use, it's going to maybe have comic book characters or whatever. The chances are pretty good that I'm going to make it very colorful. I'm going to have almost as little text as possible with a lot of imaging. Again, it just went on. Maybe it isn't. How about do it like this? There it is. It is ssa.gov. If you look in here, what you're going to find is there's not going to be, yes, there are some pictures, but you're going to have tons of text. Older people, such as myself, all right, what you find is typically when you create a site, it'll be more textual in nature. Younger people, it'll be more visual in nature. What that has to do with is you should always know who your audience is. All right. So they gave an example here of overstock. Yeah. Is it what do users want? Well, that's true. They want to get in and get out. They want to know, and when they want it, boom, they want it real easy to do whatever it is they want to do. There is a 3-click rule with websites, which says you should be able to get to any point on a website you want to get to within 3 clicks. That's not always possible, but you want to shoot for something like that and make it as easy. When you talk about being above the fold, all right, with old newspapers, when you folded it in half, everything that was on the top half was above the fold. All they're saying is you want your most important stuff at the top. Should make sense. You want to group related items together so people don't have to search for it. Include headers where necessary. Use navigation. Make it easy. So notice what this says. This is the first one. How easy it is to use a website. I have used websites already that are beautiful, but they're not functional. So they're not successful. I have gone out and used websites. I showed you a couple today. w3schools.com and dev.mozilla.org, which are highly functional, but yet not very nice looking because they don't have to be. Cross-browser compatibility. Ideally, you want your website to look the same regardless of whether or not you're looking at it in Chrome or in Safari or in Opera or in whatever. I love this. In general, Internet Explorer gives web developers the most problems. And it's true, because for many years, when the W3C would come out with recommendations, sometimes Microsoft came out with their own recommendations that weren't exactly the same as the W3Cs. Right? So here's browsers, and they've got ratings, and you can look up all this stuff if you're interested. What they're saying here, and it's true, if you're going to make a website for someone, you should test it on all different browsers, and there's different ways of doing that. We will go over some of them actually fairly soon. Accessibility is the one I've already mentioned for you. All right, and that is, again, things like the ADA, the American Disability Act. All right, there's the one they mentioned it right there. Then there are many kinds of disabilities. You may or may not be aware of this. As an example, the hardest color on the human nervous system is red. So if I was going to make a site for people who were schizophrenic, let's say, I wouldn't make my background or my text color red. I mean, there's just certain things you shouldn't do. And they give you some sites in here you can take a look at if you want more. But notice, accessibility refers to the qualities that make a website accessible. This should say to all users, especially disabled users. So they're going to try to be, when they can, in this book, they'll give you guidelines to make your stuff as basically as accessible to all as possible. Search engine optimization, SEO. No one knows exactly what happens. So, for example, if I was going to make my own sporting goods, I saw a commercial yesterday for Dick's Sporting Goods, and I decide I want to make Jeff's Sporting Goods. So I create a website and I send it off to Google and to Bing and to Yahoo. No one knows exactly what automatically or what happens when you send your website and your pages out to one of these search engines. But they're the ones who decide where it goes on the page. So for instance, again, if I came out here and just typed in here, sporting goods, you'll notice what comes up first. All right. Modals, sporting goods, you know, there's Dick's. I want mine to appear as close to the top of this as I possibly can. That's what search engine optimization deals with. Now, of course, there's more to it than that, but in a nutshell, basically, that's what it is. You may or may not be aware of it, but somewhere between 80 and 90%, and I think it's closer to 90, is Google. And the other ones split whatever's left. So as it says, SEO refers to the goal of optimizing a website so it ranks as high on the page when people do a search as possible. Responsive web design, we're going to have 2 whole chapters on this later. All right. And that means that whether you are looking at a site using your phone or whether you're looking at it on a laptop or a desktop or a tablet, it should look nice and acceptable, whether it's portrait or landscape. All right. And again, they're going to give you some stats in here. Key one is what it says here. Refers to websites that are designed to adapt gracefully to the screen size. All right. And we will go over media queries, scalable images, flexible layouts. We'll talk about all that stuff in later classes. And that's it. So I hope at least that we went over everything that was in my list here today. All right. The only other thing I want to tell you, and then we're done, is when I bring this back up, not that. There we go. Again, tomorrow we will start right away with chapter 2. and I'm going to go use the same website that I've been working with. All right. And I'm going to show how to code test and validate it. After we get done with that, we'll jump right into chapter 3. And we'll talk about using HTML, and we'll add some structure to our page. All right. Then on Thursday, okay, or Wednesday rather, so if we do both those tomorrow, Wednesday, we will finish up whatever we haven't done, and we will talk more about it, and we will take a pretest. I will give you at least an hour to work on it, and then I will build it for you from scratch. It will be patterned after the actual test that you'll have on Thursday. Friday will be lab for the entire period. I know it doesn't say it there, but it will be. All right, for those of you who joined late and didn't hear, because I don't typically share a lot of personal stuff, but I'm having some nasal surgery on Friday for a deviated septum. And it was supposed to be last Friday, but unfortunately my doctor double booked. So I asked Evan, I had vacation time coming, so that's not exactly how I wanted to spend a vacation day. I'm going to do. All right. So I'm going to save this now. It'll be out there this afternoon. If you have any questions, if I went over anything that didn't make sense to you, or if your head's spinning or whatever, and you want to send me an email, jpscott@rankin.edu. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow morning at 8:05. Have a good rest of the day. Thanks.